Three. My name is Ethan.
1 second, Ethan. Okay, I think we're live now. Let me just verify on YouTube. There's always a little bit of a lag. Let me open up the thing. I think we are live. Yeah, we're good. We're live. I'm sorry I'm late, everyone. I had some technical difficulties getting the thing started, but here we are. I also want to say thanks to Ethan for joining me. I also want to say the reason Ethan and I are talking right now is because Ethan signed up for a one-on-one chat with me. However, one-on-one chats are no longer available until May. I'm about to start a full-time job that's preventing me from doing one-on-one chats for the next 3 months while I'm doing this 70-hour-a-week seasonal job as a tax preparer. Here in the United States, people need to file taxes, and it all happens between, February 1st and April 15th. So I'm going to be packing in, a fuck ton of tax returns over the next few months, not really doing too much jaw hack stuff. So this is literally my last consult until May. Ethan got the slot. He wanted to do it live. He wants to share his story. So Ethan, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, and we'll go from there, my friend.
Yeah, so I'm Ethan. I'm 23 and I'm from Phoenix. I did MSE and I'm recovering from a botched MMA. I did MMA surgery, but the surgery was botched. And so I was going to show, I'm not sure if it's showing the screens.
You want me to share your screen right now?
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to dive right into a screen share from Ethan. Here it is.
Yeah, so this was my airway scan before. And so the movements that the surgeon did were the surgeon advanced my maxilla by 9 millimeters. And he rotated counterclockwise via impaction, which is where they kind of cut a wedge in the maxilla there and rotate it like that. But it was because of that he rotated it via impaction that he wasn't able to get a lot of movement on the lower jaw. And so he basically compensated by doing like a huge genioplasty, which pulls forward some of these muscles here, the genioglossus and hyoid bone. So if the surgeon had done a larger counterclockwise rotation and done what's called down grafting, which is basically bone grafting on the back of the maxilla, he would have been able to get a larger rotation and advancement. You can kind of see in this image, it looks like my airway is open, but I have this awful like compressed neck posture.
Damn, bro. I was not expecting this, man. I was not expecting to get you on and literally 60 seconds into talking to you, have you totally fucking giving us the Matrix download on double jaw surgery. This is very interesting to me personally. I don't know much about this stuff, and I'm feeling grateful to have you share this story with us. So, can we step back, Ethan? What the hell happened here? Did you want to share with the audience your story of a botched MMA? Is that the big picture?
Yeah, I kind of wrote notes in terms of the things. I didn't just want to like read it verbatim to like bore people, but I was just kind of gonna go through my story. And if you like had questions where you wanted to stop me and kind of go through, I could do it that way.
Yeah, let's do it that way. Why don't you here's my preferred format for sharing information. Say what you're going to say it, and then in the end we'll say what you said. So intro, body, conclusion. Big picture. What's your story in one paragraph? Where did you start? Why did you do what you did? What happened, and where are you now?
Okay, I mean, I wrote notes, which I'm not sure how I'm gonna go off of this, but yeah. So I wanted to talk about my trauma, to share my experience so we can learn from it and help other people.
Okay.
But I also just wanted to explain that this is just an anecdote, and my symptoms were very unique and extreme. So I found myself in a very bad situation before my surgery. I'm not exaggerating when I say if my surgery was delayed by even a few months, I might have checked myself into an inpatient so I didn't try to hurt myself. So in a sense, I'm glad I got it when I did, even though I got such poor results. And it was just kind of how a sequence of events ended up unfolding that landed me in this situation where I got the surgery that I did.
Wow. So your physical health led to a landslide in your mental health, and you were just in a terrible place before this double jaw surgery.
Yeah.
Tell us more about that. what was happening in your health? Could you not sleep? Could you not breathe? What was your mental health like? How bad really was it, man? Because part of what I like to do on this channel is share with the world how fucking bad it can be for people who have bad facial structure and who end up getting neglected in that part of their physical health.
Yeah, I mean, my symptoms were very extreme. I did just want to mention first, I wanted to give a shout out to my music project because I had a music project called Origin of Styx, which I created kind of like as I was growing up, and I would use that project to kind of journal some of the thoughts and emotions that I went through when I was growing up with this problem. And so if I didn't have that project and was making music, I felt like I basically would have just wasted all this time being miserable. So if you guys can, like, people can help me out by listening to my music and sharing it, then you're going to help me out in paying off medical bills when I get my revision.
All right, well, how can they access your stuff? I'm going to drop it in the comments right now. And I'm going to
Yes,
I'm going to put it in the description of the video later.
I'm on all streaming platforms: SoundCloud, Bandcamp, Spotify, YouTube. I even like to do creative things where sometimes I would use like the scans of my jaws and use that as like album covers.
Yeah.
So you can find
Wow.
that anywhere.
And does your music have anything to do with the original band Styx?
No, it
Okay.
comes from Greek mythology.
Oh, fantastic. Who was Styx? It was Styx. Tell us about Styx.
Styx was the river in Where the Dead. Um,
In Hades.
yeah,
That's right.
it's actually an interesting story where when I first started making these kind of like dark ambient sounds when I was like 15, um, this this rapper from Poland contacted me online and said that he liked my music and wanted me to do like an intro and outro for his album. And I agreed, but I didn't have a name at the time to make that kind of music. So he recommended Origin of Styx.
I love it, man. I love it. I love antiquity. I was almost an antiquities major in college. Greek mythology is fascinating to me. Also, I have a particular fascination with death as a former Buddhist. You know, I did a lot of death contemplation, wondering about what happens after death. And I think the lore around Hades and the River of Styx is fascinating. So please, everyone, support Ethan by looking up Origin of Styx on any platform that has music. And so we'll leave that at that. I'll drop a link in the description of this video later. Why don't you pick it up with your story, Ethan?
Yeah, so I guess I was going to go back to my childhood and some of the things that caused me to develop this problem and how my symptoms progressed growing up. So for me, things kind of peaked, I would say like K through third grade, where everything in school was so easy, it was boring. All my teachers said I was totally gifted, I'd have a bright future. But I think it was around this time I started having problems because I grew up with one, a tongue thrust. I also a bit of a lisp, which I declined speech therapy when I was younger, which probably would have helped me out. And then I also had severe childhood asthma, which I think just kind of predisposed me to mouth breathing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so third grade, I ended up going to a Montessori school because my parents felt like that would be more like intellectually engaging for me. But in the Montessori school, I can see what I think now is signs of childhood OSA, of even some maybe behavioral problems or inattentiveness or mild ADHD like symptoms in class. But I think I was just very smart and able to compensate for it at the time.
Yeah, you know, it's weird, man. I've spent a lot of time rolling with very high IQ people, whether it be at college or at the monastery or since. And some of the smartest people I know have the fucking smallest skulls. It's really bizarre. It's almost like the smarter you are, like at the very high IQ levels, like the genius IQ levels. It's almost like they all have. I don't know any genius Chads. I know it generally, the smaller your skull, the worse your airway, the worse you're going to perform intellectually. But there's a weird thing that happens at the far end of the curve where some of the smartest people have really small heads.
Hmm. Yeah,
Continue.
so kind of going on then, I guess, as I grew up, starting in middle school, I think I saw more signs of mental fatigue. But since I grew up having that mental fatigue, I didn't realize that I had that fatigue or how bad it was. But I remember, say, like even in seventh grade, for example, that was when I stopped taking piano lessons. But when I was a kid, I wanted to grow up and be like the next Mozart. So I didn't realize
Mm.
it at the time, but I believe now that losing interest and motivation in piano was a symptom of mental fatigue, which was from childhood OSA.
Hmm.
And the same thing kind of happened when I started getting interested in DJing and making electronic music, where I got a DJ mixer and some music production software, but I would run into these problems of feeling mentally fatigued and not being able to motivate myself to engage with these hobbies, even though I had a burning passion to do so. I feel like I unknowingly had this mental fatigue. And so it's frustrating me now because I think if I didn't grow up with these breathing problems, I would have a lot less mental fatigue and I'd be further along now in my music career.
Yeah. Yeah, probably, man. It was definitely a handicap, and maybe it continues to be a handicap.
So I was gonna, I guess, go on when I started experiencing more of my symptoms of the brain fog and how this problem started affecting my life more severely was really, um, I would say when I was a sophomore in high school, that was also when I was 15, I started Origin of Styx and started using that project kind of as an outlet for some of the things I was going through.
Mm.
Um,
Suffering can produce some of the best art.
yeah, it's like I suffer and then the music just writes itself is sometimes how it happens.
That was a big point that Nietzsche frequently made in his writing, was that suffering produced better art than happiness.
Yeah, no, I'm like a big I think you saw it. I put the Nietzsche and the Schopenhauer up there.
I didn't notice that, but there you go, man.
No, I'm like a big philosophy person too, but
Yeah, you like the dark ones, huh?
yeah.
You must like Buddhist philosophy too, since you're into some of the more the darker philosophies. Although
Oh, yeah.
Buddhism has a happy ending, so
No, I do you know anything about like Schopenhauer?
not too much. I do know that he did suggest agreement with the Buddha that life was inherently full of lots of suffering. But if you asked me to summarize his stuff in a nutshell, I probably couldn't do it good justice. Do you want to summarize Schopenhauer for us?
Well, Schopenhauer had a lot of parallels to like Buddhist ideas where I mean if you think of like some of the noble truths where one is life is dissatisfaction or dukkha, I think is a word that's used. Two is that there's a cause of that, and then what three is that the cause of that is that we crave or attach ourselves to our cravings, and then we can follow this path um, to nirvana. I think is the
The
but
fourth.
Schopenhauer basically agreed with the first three of the four like noble truths. He basically felt like life was this kind of constant struggle and striving, and that we struggle because of attaching ourselves to our cravings. Except Schopenhauer calls it will. He says that everything in the world is like a manifestation of this driving force that he calls will, and that's why we're suffering is because we're a manifestation of this always like satiating will that can't be satisfied.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
Schopenhauer,
In Buddhism, they might have called that striving or becoming.
yeah.
Hmm.
Um,
Schopenhauer.
yeah, the Schopenhauer. Yeah, I mean, there's just a lot of parallels. He also got I know was into like was it not the Bhagavad Gita? Was it the Vedas or one of those ancient Sanskrit texts? He was like very influenced by it. But
For
there's a
sure.
lot of there are a lot of parallels like with Schopenhauer and Buddhism.
Was it all for nothing in Schopenhauer's conclusion? Does he
So
say? Yeah.
Schopenhauer, if he was actually a proponent of what people now call antinatalism, where yeah, he basically said that it would have been better not to be born. Basically.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I know there's a I forget what the book is called, but there's some magnum opus, an antinatalist magnum opus that was written maybe 10 or 15 years ago that painted a very dark, depressive picture. That I was sort of into that stuff for a while, and they love to quote Buddhist texts in antinatalist writings. However, what I later found by getting deeper and deeper into Buddhism, that Buddhism, yes, posed the problem of suffering, but Buddhism also poses a solution to suffering. And so I then later considered all of the uh, references to Buddhism in the antinatalist works to be uh, dishonest because they weren't telling the whole story of Buddhism.
Yeah, no, I think that Schopenhauer has a lot of similar parallels to Buddhism, but that's the one thing that he disagrees with is I think that the Buddha says I believe that I found the answer, where Schopenhauer says I'm not convinced that there is an answer. It's just
Right.
pointless striving.
Right. Right. Yeah, that's the difference between someone who's doing deep states of concentration, i.e., the Buddha, who was able to penetrate consciousness deeply enough using his deep meditation to get answers that someone like Schopenhauer, who didn't have access to meditative tools, he could just never see that stuff. So it's the difference between an astronomer who's just using his bare eyes to look up at the night sky versus an astronomer who has a telescope. The Buddha had a telescope, Schopenhauer didn't. That's how I understand it.
Yeah. I think Schopenhauer also might have been limited by his time period, of course, because he was one of the first people to kind of introduce Eastern philosophy into like the Western world.
Right. Perhaps. Ethan, at the risk of losing the audience, do you want to bring this back toward your dental issues and your health?
Yeah. So I
Although,
was talking about the brain fog actually. So brain fog is a very vague term, but I remember coming across that term online, and I felt like that was strongly described what I was experiencing. There were other terms too. I remember that described some of the feelings that I had. Another was derealization and also maladaptive daydreaming, which I'll talk about that later. So derealization is a dissociative symptom that occurs as a response to stress or trauma and refers to the feeling of being disconnected from the world. But I experienced derealization as feeling like I'm literally inside of a fog, and that fog was separating me from what was happening outside. So brain fog feels more this feeling of the mind being foggy and not being able to think clearly, but derealization refers to more to this feeling of being disconnected from your surroundings because of being inside of a literal fog.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah,
So I
wow.
had like a comic I was going to share, like if I could do a screen share.
Yes. Are we ready to share?
Yeah.
Okay, hold on. Okay.
Well, I think this for me like really just does it in terms of what when I say brain fog, this was a picture I saw on Reddit of a woman in the Sears Tower on a foggy day, but this is exactly what it feels like for me. Um
Wow.
yeah, that kind of yeah, I mean that's another example of like feeling like this fog is disconnecting me from what's happening around me. I was actually
How do you make sense of that last photo? What
yeah, I
does
mean,
this mean to you in a nutshell?
at least for me, there's a lot of times where I feel like I'm having an experience. I'm just kind of on autopilot and I'm watching my body doing things and I'm watching things happening. And that as this fog would worsen, then that kind of feeling of being on autopilot would worsen.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And then I found this comic that kind of explained depersonalization, derealization. And again, I'm not saying that everyone that has sleep breathing problems has like derealization, but this was how I experienced the brain fog.
So just for anyone who's tuning in recently, is it fair to say that you're suggesting that the root cause of some of these horrible symptoms that you were feeling, the brain fog, for example, were related to breathing problems that you had?
All of it was directly correlated with these breathing problems. But again, I'm not trying to say that everyone, other people that have derealization maybe has breathing problems that is causing their derealization. But that was what I found was that I was basically growing up into this fog, and that, well, I guess I'll probably have to explain like as the story goes on.
Okay.
I
Can we
just kind of
pause?
wanted to,
Ethan, I want to pause for a second. Anyone who feels for Ethan or anyone who relates to Ethan, go ahead and hit the like button. Let's get the numbers on the likes for this video up. So why don't we go ahead and do that right now before Ethan continues? Please hit that like button. Thank you. I see the likes coming in. Ethan, go ahead, continue.
yeah. So this is a comic that I found: living with depersonalization, strange me in a strange world, spacing out. DPDR feels like watching yourself from inside your head, sometimes from outside your body, feeling really spaced out. Vision problems, everything looks like a dream. We often feel alienated and others feel robot like. Disconnected. I often feel disconnected from myself and the world. My vision is blurred as if there was a glass in front of my face. Is this really me? Looking into a mirror is hard because I have a hard time to recognize myself. I know it is me, but everything looks so unfamiliar. Sometimes even looking at my own hands is hard because they don't feel and look like mine. It's horrible when people you love or surroundings you know well are appearing strange and unfamiliar. Personally, I always have a hard time when I talk to people. I feel so robot-like that I don't really feel I'm the one talking. We have no loss of reality. We know that all those symptoms are not real, but it causes a lot of anxiety and fear. I do remember too, even at 15, when I first started experiencing this brain fog, having problems of like, what if I lose control and I can't function anymore, which kind of actually progressed to those extremes, which I guess I'll talk about.
Wow. Wow, man. This is very moving.
Yeah.
You know,
Um,
it reminds me of when I've had bouts of social anxiety, you know, when you're talking to someone and they're just like a naturally social person, and so they're totally just flowing and feeling it, but all I'm thinking about is what they're thinking about, what I'm feeling, and I just feel totally disconnected from just being in the stream of the flow of things. And it's a horrible, horrible uh, type of self-consciousness to experience.
yeah.
Would you say that, and again, I'm just kind of bringing this back to my own experiences, but would you say social anxiety is a particular part of this condition, or would you say that you were just so numb that you didn't even feel anxious socially? You just felt like, blah, fuck it.
I think a lot of times in social situations, I just appeared very spaced out or aloof. Like there were times even too, people have asked my friends like, "Hey, like Ethan is very quiet. Like, is he okay?" But a lot of times it's just for me because I would be um, so like spaced out, and so it was kind of a struggle where I'd want to talk to people and I want to engage with people, yet I felt like this kind of mental fog was making that inaccessible.
Mm, mm. Sure. You can continue, Ethan. Thanks.
Yeah, it just says I'm here to tell you we're not crazy. I know how hard it is, and I pray every day that I can see the world as it once was. Locked, and that's the end of that comic.
So what is DPDR?
Depersonalization, derealization. So dissociation. Um, I'm trying to think of how I should fit this into my story. Basically, when the brain is under a lot of stress, then that causes what's called trauma. That's just what trauma means, that the brain is under so much stress, it's not properly processing that stress. And so dissociation is a symptom of trauma where it's this coping mechanism where the mind might disconnect you from yourself and disconnect you from the things that are happening around you um, as a response to this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wow. Yeah. You can
Yes,
continue with your story, Ethan.
yeah, I guess I was going to continue then when I was in high school. So my depression and my mental health was starting to become more severe. I found myself more prone to depression and come home from school and be so tired. I just fall asleep for hours. And so by the time I'd wake up, I'd feel so tired and unmotivated. I'd struggle to get my homework done. And so I wouldn't fall asleep until the early morning. So I'd wake up tired and groggy, and this whole cycle would repeat.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so
Mm-hmm.
it got really bad, especially like my senior year of high school, where I ended up actually failing one of my classes because it was a physics 2 class. I had so much brain fog. It was like I couldn't wrap my mind around these concepts and just couldn't get things done. And so I ended up failing. I had to take summer school to get my diploma.
Right. Yeah. I mean, even a guy as brilliant as Ethan, who's obviously very, very, very high IQ, uh, a class like physics, you can't just plow your way through it with pure intelligence. It actually requires work and it requires practice. It's like a language that you have to learn. And so I can imagine that your inability to show up on a daily basis, to do your problem sets, to get your practice done, to do the practice tests, you can't pass physics without putting in the work. So that's where you hit a wall. But
I kind of just hit a wall that whole year, like my whole senior year of high school.
Mhm. Yeah, that's a tough time to hit a wall, man, because that's such a pivotal transitional year.
Yeah. I
Like
actually did,
like in American lore, and the American dream, right? Senior year of high school should be one of the best years of your life. So I'm sorry that you had such a horrible experience.
yeah.
Jolly, I think Jolly donated $1. Jolly, I appreciate that. That means a lot, bro. Thank you so much for that super chat. And Ethan, continue.
Yeah, well, my senior year of high school, I was feeling more depressed, and so I was like, I was actually starting to get more serious about trying to improve my mental health. And so I started trying these different things like intermittent fasting, where I'd skip breakfast and fast for 16 hours. Trying things like taking cold showers to try and strengthen my willpower. Journaling, cognitive behavioral therapy exercises to try and have less like anxious thoughts. Doing daily mindfulness and breath work meditation, even cycle commuting. I started riding my bike places.
Just to jack up the happy chemicals. Basically, you were trying to hack the system and just override the bad shit that was happening in your brain by biohacking in every which way you could come up with, basically.
Yeah.
When was this? How old are you now, and what year did you graduate high school, if you don't mind?
So I graduated in 2017.
High school?
Yeah.
Damn, bro, you're a baby.
I'm 23.
Wow. Wow. Making me feel
Yeah.
old,
So
man.
I finished high school. I actually took a gap year because I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do with myself, because I thought I was depressed and I was trying all these lifestyle changes. And so I started going to more parties. I started doing more parties and did a bit of DJing, even like locally, and playing some doomcore music was one of the genres that I play.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and then eventually I ended up going to a trade school for audio engineering. So I was convinced that maybe, if I engage with my music hobby, it might help me get out of the mental fog that I'm in. But of course, at this point, then the brain fog and the intention issues and sleep problems were already severe. But since I grew up like that, I didn't necessarily realize how severe and abnormal that was. So I was optimistic. I was like, I'm going to go to this trade school, and I'm going to engage with one of my hobbies of audio engineering. But instead, it was like I show up to class already exhausted. And so by the time the 4-hour class was over, I wouldn't have any energy to practice using the audio equipment. And I would just go home, feel tired, and then struggle to sleep,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah, yeah. You were trying to assert your rationality and your intelligence over a horrible physical deficiency. You were thinking and using your brain and your power of reason to come up with every possible solution. I mean, you must have done so much research trying to get to the bottom of this and doing all of the things that you're supposed to do, right? Get your body right, get your lifestyle right, get your career right, get all of these core things right in your life. And it wasn't working. There was something fundamentally wrong in the system. That
Yeah.
must have been incredibly frustrating for you.
Yeah. I was actually going to describe, like, because it was after finishing that trade school when I kind of hit a wall, where I was like, I can't keep living like this. I need to figure out what the problem was. And so 2020, when everything locked down and COVID happened, that was the year I spent researching online, chasing doctors down, and I tried every lifestyle change imaginable.
Yep.
So I was going to basically, I just wrote through like a list of the symptoms and then the things that I try to treat, and I was just going to go through and like explain them.
Yeah, smash it.
So the symptoms: having a constant fog in my mind, having poor executive functioning, having difficulty concentrating, feeling weak and tired no matter how much I sleep, depersonalization and derealization, anhedonia, which means just emotional flatlining or lacking motivation, losing interest in things. I'd have sleep onset insomnia, so I had problems falling asleep. I would get intrusive thoughts, never ending stress and angst. Kind of going back, I mentioned having social anxiety because my mind was always foggy. So I wanted to talk to people, but I couldn't. I'd spend 99% of my life spacing out, seasonal affective problems. So my symptoms would always flare up in the winter.
Where do you live?
I live in Phoenix.
Damn, seasonal affective disorder in Phoenix? How the fuck does that work?
That's an interesting question. I found out I have a problem called vasomotor rhinitis.
What?
So basically, it's changes in atmospheric pressure or barometric pressure, especially around December and January, give me a lot of sinus pressure. And that would always exacerbate my breathing problems.
Wow. Oh, you know what? I can relate because my headache problems get worse in overcast or rainy weather because of the increased atmospheric pressure causing increased dilation or constriction of blood vessels that result in migraine headaches. So I get it, man. Yeah,
Yeah.
I can relate to you on that. Fascinating.
And so I kept feeling worse. I started developing more symptoms like maladaptive daydreaming was one of them I talked about, which is basically just when daydreaming starts to become a disorder or
Mm-hmm.
becomes immersive, it becomes a form of dissociation.
Mm-hmm.
I started having what I would describe as like feelings of acquired dyslexia, where when I would try and read, then the words would kind of jumble around on the page and I couldn't focus on the words.
Damn.
I would get, there were times too where I get, when my sleep was bad, I would get orthostatic problems, which means being lightheaded. Muscle twitches and cramps. So kind of like when you're really tired and like your eye will start twitching. I would get feelings like that, but all over, muscles all over my body were like, my arm would randomly start twitching and cramping, and then my leg. And so I would have that. Um, Waking up with tension headaches, um, having digestive issues, feeling like my eyes are constantly dry and inflamed. And then I would wake up every day feeling like I was being ran over by a train, was how I would describe that.
Yeah.
So those are the symptoms. And then the things, all the things that I try to treat it. One was the daily meditation and the breath work, which that we kind of talked a little bit about meditation. I got really into meditation for a bit where, let's say I would do like 30 minutes of meditation in the morning, doing like usually mindful breath work. And then I'd still be depressed or have brain fog. And so I'd be like, I need to meditate more. And so I'd do an hour of meditation in the morning. And then I'd still be feeling worse. And so I tried doing an hour in the morning, an hour in the night, and things like that. Long distance cycling, which I mentioned, doing yoga and Tai Chi.
Bro, I give you fucking props for the effort you put into trying to figure this out, man. I can imagine a guy like you, if you had a fully functional, healthy body, like a robust Chad type body, uh, with that level of dedication and conscientiousness, ability to problem solve, and persistence, I can only imagine what you could have accomplished up to this point. But if you can ultimately figure this out, what you can accomplish, if you can apply that same diligence going forward. So I'm very hopeful for you if we can figure out what's going on with your airway. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I honestly believe that my personal belief is if I didn't grow up with this problem, I already would be recognized as being some kind of prodigy. That's my belief. And I'll kind of explain later.
Sure.
So I tried also like journaling self-affirmations and cognitive behavioral therapy exercises. I filled out like multiple entire journals of writing the same self-affirmations, doing cognitive exercises, trying restrictive diets like vegan or keto. So try cutting out inflammatory foods, different forms of fasting. I mentioned before, I tried 16/8. I tried 1 meal a day fasting. I once even tried going 3 days fasting only water and electrolytes. I bought a 1 month session in a sensory deprivation tank where I went every other day and did an hour-long float session. And it was actually kind of ironic because after the end of the month, my symptoms were continuing to worsen and actually fell apart.
Yeah.
I tried self hypnosis. So if you've ever heard those like hypnosis tapes,
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying every supplement, superfood you could think of, nootropics, doing cognitive exercises, doing daily Sudoku, doing daily mental math, disconnecting from all electronics, disconnecting from all social media, all websites, things like that.
Did you try Stronger Gum? Link in the description.
Not yet, but I will.
All right. Sorry, shameless plug. Stronger Gum, it's a great chewing gum, great for mewing, great for development of facial muscles. You can just look it up in the description of any of my videos. Highly recommended.
Yeah, so those were all the lifestyle changes. And part of it too was just desperation of if I tried some kind of lifestyle change and felt better, then I'd be like, oh, maybe I'm going in the right direction of figuring this out. But I kept feeling worse. And so that was when I realized that physiologically something just wasn't right.
I want to ask you something you didn't mention, how about addictions? Did you develop any addictions during this time? Because Aiden, who I think is watching, when he came on and he described a story that's parallel to yours, he talked all about how these breathing disorders can predispose a young man to terrible addictions like pornography, cannabis, you name it, sugar.
Oh, I mean, I think that having impulse control for anything was severely impacted. Even just things like spending money.
100%.
I'd get money, and then within a day, it would be gone.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, but no, like I definitely think that being able to have like impulse control was severely impacted by that problem.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So in terms of all the doctors that I tried, a lot of this too. I remember I was reading on r/brain fog or the brain fog subreddit to try and get ideas. I went to a general chiropractor and physical therapist for posture exercises, which is interesting because my posture and back problems probably related to the airway issues anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Do they do
I
happy endings?
what?
Do they do happy endings?
um, yeah, I even tried a specialized upper cervical chiropractor to check my atlas bone. Um, Massage therapist where I was like, maybe my back is so tense, there's not enough blood coming to my brain. Basically just really desperation. A lot of it too was just bouncing ideas off people on Reddit.
Mm-hmm.
I went to a psychiatrist. I was screened for ADHD, and I briefly tried medications for, which again, that might have just been desperation. I need to figure out what's wrong with me. I don't think that was a problem. Ophthalmologist to check if eye issues are contributing to these issues. I did GP for every blood test, vitamin and hormone levels, anti-nuclear antibody, check if I was having autoimmune problems,
Mm-hmm.
CBC, thyroid.
Syphilis? Did you get tested for syphilis? Your boy Nietzsche got hit with that one.
I didn't. I don't think that's my problem.
Okay.
I did a brain MRI from a neurologist, cardiologist, blood pressure tests, EKG, echocardiogram, nutritionist where we talked about food sensitivities, an allergist where we did allergy testing because I read one person on our brain fog found out their brain fog was being caused from environmental allergens.
Mm-hmm.
And then finally, after all that, the only thing left was the sleep apnea.
Oh, what about ketamine, bro?
Well, I tried ketamine like recreationally, but
Okay. All right.
I mean, I guess you can say that for psychonautical purposes too, like that did interest me.
Yeah, I can see you being a psychonaut. You strike me as that kind of guy. That's cool. Yeah, so you eventually bottomed out with sleep apnea, the one that is not a quick fix.
Yeah.
Right. So how did that journey go? So you came upon sleep apnea as a potential cause of your problem on Reddit, is that right?
Yeah, it actually was Reddit. It was I mean, I didn't think it was sleep apnea because a lot of the things online were just saying that sleep apnea patients, the biggest risk factors are age, weight gain, snoring loudly, and just problems I didn't have. But then on Reddit, I found the subreddit for upper airway resistance syndrome, which means non-hypoxic OSA, or sleep apnea, where there's not actually apneas or oxygen desaturations.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So when UARS was first discovered, it was believed that it was a distinct syndrome in a distinct population, or that it more commonly affected people that are young and thin. At least when it was first discovered by, I think it was Christine Guilleminault at Stanford who described it. But I was reading online about a lot of patient experiences where there are people that were young and thin. They did sleep studies that showed that they weren't having apneas, but they still had this breathing problem called UARS.
Mm-hmm.
And so that refers more to things like flow limitations or RAS, which is respiratory effort related arousals. So
Mm-hmm.
where the constriction in the airway is such that, let's just say, as you're progressing into your sleep architecture, you go into your REM and deep sleep, and then the muscles in your body relax, then that causes constriction in parts of the airway. And so those cause arousals that disrupts the natural sleep architecture. And not just disrupting sleep architecture. I think that it's putting the brain under a lot of stress, because when you're in REM sleep, you're supposed to be, that's when your brain and your body focuses on healing itself and recovering. But that's actually when my mind would be the most stressed, because that was when I felt like I was suffocating the worst, was actually during REM and deep sleep.
Fuck. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so I was just doing all this research on Reddit, and it was like the gears were turning, and then I found a server. It was a link on the subreddit for UARS to a server on Discord that I joined called Sleep Disorder Breathing, and that's basically like how I went down the rabbit hole, basically.
How long did it take you after starting down the rabbit hole till you found JawHacks?
Not too far after, actually.
Okay,
Probably
so
a few months.
a few months.
Yeah.
I would have thought you would have got there a little faster than that, but all right, I'm good with that.
Well, it might have been sooner. I mean, I discovered my problem, I think by the time I finally learned about UARS, it was like end of fall of 2020.
Mm-hmm.
And then, yeah, so I wanted to talk about, I guess, then my chronic illness life. This is the part of the story where I can talk about my chronic illness life.
Okay. All right.
So at the end of 2020, then when I went down this rabbit hole and
Ethan, before we start chronic illness, with there's 34 people watching, there's only 19 likes on this video. That means there's a lot of people who haven't liked it yet. Please go ahead. It's a zero cost way of supporting this channel so we can get guys like Ethan on to share their story with this level of brilliance and detail and IQ. If you like what you're hearing, at least if you like the presentation of it, I know it's a very upsetting story, but if you like what you're hearing, please smash that like button. Gronk spike that like button. All right, good. I see the numbers are climbing. I appreciate you all, unlocking your phone, going to the YouTube video, hitting that thumb. Really appreciate it. All right, Ethan, you were saying chronic illness.
Yeah, my chronic illness life. It's kind of difficult to recall some of the events that happened during this time period due to the nature of the experience, because my life back then was exactly what I would imagine it would feel like to be in hell. And so these trauma and these dissociative symptoms that I had grown up with had progressed to these extremes to where I was basically just completely shell-shocked.
Fuck.
So I started going down this rabbit hole. Sleep disorder breathing, was on this Discord server. The first step was I needed to do sleep studies to get a diagnosis, but the sleep lab that I went to didn't really have the competency to identify the problems I was having. So they started giving me a home sleep apnea test, which showed that there was very occasional and gentle snoring, but it had an apnea-hypopnea index of less than 5. But that made me optimistic still that I was going down the right path of getting diagnosed with UARS. And I read patient experiences where people did sleep studies where they weren't scoring respiratory effort-related arousals or RDI, respiratory disturbance index. And I knew I had to push for in-lab study. So I asked the sleep tech before my study, I said, do you guys score respiratory effort-related arousals and RDI? And he said, completely confident, yeah, we check for everything. So the night of the sleep study came, and I only slept 50 minutes that entire night. And there were 10 spontaneous arousals, but it didn't show that it was scoring the respiratory disturbance index. And so I figured it was most likely that was just respiratory arousals. And so after that, I asked for what's called a watch pad, which is a home sleep apnea test that's friendly to UARS, which showed that there was an apnea-hypopnea index of 5 and a respiratory disturbance index of 11, and that warranted a diagnosis of mild obstructive sleep apnea.
You must have been happy when that diagnosis came in, because you must have thought, okay, hey, at least now we know what we're dealing with.
Yeah. I mean, on the one hand, I was kind of frustrated that I didn't get diagnosed with UARS, or that it didn't show that it was more severe. And again, I think that has to do with the competency of the sleep lab, because there is different diagnostic criteria and different scoring criteria. Like I know, I think there's a lab, Dr. Simmons in Texas, where he does something called esophageal pressure, where they use a tube that goes down your nose and is more able to detect flow limitations and identify these types of breathing problems. But either way, I was happy I got a diagnosis.
It was a lead.
What?
It was a lead.
Yeah, it was a lead. So they prescribed me an auto CPAP machine, and I started wrestling with this, and I had one night of sleep that wasn't completely terrible. And this is the way I describe it was, I woke up and it felt like there was a switch that had flipped in my mind. And I felt less groggy and dissociated. And I sat down on my computer and I worked on music for 4 straight hours. Whereas before I had so much brain fog and writer's block, I couldn't make a single beat for 4 months. So I knew I was onto something. But after that, my sleep actually started getting worse and I started becoming more intolerant to using the machine.
Mm-hmm.
It reached the point where I basically became a nervous wreck.
Mm-hmm.
And there was one time, for example, I was having like a complete meltdown where I was like smacking myself in the head. I basically just lost control, and all I wanted to do was just injure myself, basically. And so
Fuck, man.
my mom was like screaming at me, saying like, I haven't seen you act like this before. I even ended up going to urgent care to make sure I didn't give myself a concussion. And that was how like sleep deprived and dissociated I'd become, to where I acted like that.
But why all of a sudden, now that you're doing the CPAP, did it get worse? So it got better, then it got worse? Did
I
the
had
fact that you had tasted sanity and then lost it again, did that exacerbate the feeling of frustration and nihilism that you then felt at that point, where you were literally banging your head up against the wall?
I don't know why it was that I was so intolerant to PAP. My hypothesis is that a lot of people where they might have better jaw structure, it just kind of, the positive airway pressure helps stent the airway open. But I think that for people like me, where the airway is just so constricted, that the positive, or the pressure of sleeping with the machine might cause just as many arousals as the breathing problem itself without having the machine.
Yeah. It's like
Um, I
it's like shitting sitting down instead of squatting. It's like you're trying to force solid through a compressed pipe. It just doesn't work.
Yeah,
That's why, shameless plug to one of my favorite health hacks, never sit on the toilet. Always squat on the toilet, because what Ethan's describing is happening in his airway, where there's a kink and the fluid can't flow. That's what's happening in your fucking rectum when you sit on the toilet rather than squat. It's what causes anal fissures. It's what causes your intestines to get swollen and you get appendicitis, and then you lose your appendix, which is a store of probiotics. It causes all sorts of other issues in your intestines, including IBS, Crohn's disease. Never sit on the toilet, squat on the toilet, open up that pipe. Just like we want to open up airways, we want to open up the other side of our system as well by squatting on the toilet. If you're not squatting yet on the toilet, it's the easiest thing you can start doing to improve your health immediately. Go ahead, Ethan. CPAP failed you.
yeah. I did research online about BiPAP. There is Dr. Barry Krakow, who is one of the sleep medicine doctors that's a proponent of UARS, did research about using BiPAP for UARS and flow limitations. So CPAP is continuous positive airway pressure. It uses continuous positive airway pressure to try and help stent the airway open. But BiPAP uses bilevel positive airway pressure. And so it uses this alternation between an inhale and an exhale positive airway pressure, and that is called pressure support. And that's used to decrease what's called work of breathing. So it works actually more like a ventilator. So I was actually gonna do the screen share again.
Yep. When you're ready, let me know and I'll throw it up there.
Oh, I'm ready now. So this is basically what I was doing to titrate the BiPAP machine that I had. I had a software called Oscar where I'd have an SD card from the machine, and then I'd take it out and put it in my computer, and I could basically look at how I was breathing, like breath by breath, and try and identify, the respiratory effort related arousals and flow limitations. But yeah, I was just wrestling with this machine.
Question: as an audio engineer, you must love waveforms, right? You're comfortable working with these types of waveforms.
Yeah. I mean, I had to learn a bit. Like I was trying to like zoom in and look breath by breath in terms of like understanding what the different breathing problems look like in terms of, like what does a RARA look like, or what does a flow limitation look like?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I was posting in the server, and a lot of people were talking about something called MSE, as well as talking about MMA.
Yep.
And so as my symptoms were continuing to worsen, I realized I needed more permanent solutions. I ended up finding my current orthodontist, who did the MSE and scheduled the consultation to come in and talk about getting the expander. And once I went in and met this orthodontist, I felt relief because I felt like I finally found a doctor that at least like somewhat had an idea of what I was talking about.
So when you started getting into this thought that you're going to fix your sleep disordered breathing by expanding your jaws, you immediately were able to discern that the best way to do that was with MSE and then double jaw surgery. You never got caught up in the riffraff of tooth-borne expanders. You were never tempted by a DNA or a homeo block or any other bullshit.
No, the people that were in that server were definitely like helping me figure out like what's legit and what's not.
Yeah, they were linking to jaw hacks, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
But no, I mean, it was a server of people that were basically doing like MSE and doing MMA.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so I came into the consultation, and pretty much the first thing he said was, this expander won't fix your problem. The best treatment is MMA. And he said, I have a surgeon I could refer you to. But I said, I know part of this issue is my narrow palate and my tongue thrust. And he picked up on that right away. He said, has anyone told you have a tongue thrust? And I said, I know that's part of my problem.
Mm-hmm.
And so I said I wanted to get some expansion before moving on to the MMA.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, my orthodontist then sat down with my parents and kind of explained to them. He said, yeah, MMA is the best treatment, but my sleep study scores were very low, or they were mild. And so he said it might be worth starting with the MARPI or the MSE to get expansion. And so at this point, I was already like a nervous wreck. I felt like complete garbage. But my parents didn't like the idea of me doing MMA, and they said that was too invasive and risky.
But you wanted it? Did you want it?
Yeah, I'm trying to think like back now. I remember at this point, I'd already came to the conclusion of realizing that I would need MMA. And I remember telling the orthodontist, like, I would do MMA tomorrow if I could. Like, that's where I was mentally.
Yeah, you wanted it, man.
Yeah.
By the way, did you ever try liquid ketones?
I haven't, actually.
Bomb. $8 for this little bottle. Highly recommended. I don't know if it actually does shit, but it tastes good, and it's like a good placebo of like energy.
Yeah, so I guess I was going to talk again a bit about what my chronic illness life was like and what my experience of the world was like. And that's kind of hard because I don't really have words to describe the kind of pain that I was in. It would be like I'd hit rock bottom, and then that rock bottom would just keep getting bottomer.
Did you ever listen to the song Rock Bottom by Eminem from the Slim Shady LP?
No, I didn't actually.
Listen to that song. That's probably my favorite hip hop song ever.
I'm going to take a note of that right now. Like,
yep. Yeah, because you're a music guy. You appreciate it. Yes, there it is.
Yeah, I remember just telling myself, like, I didn't realize it was possible for a person to be this miserable in life. The kind of pain I experienced was constant. It was excruciating. I would compare it to feeling like my nervous system was on fire, or at least that my sympathetic nervous system, this kind of fight or flight feeling, was just on overdrive, and I was existing purely in this survival mode and just trying to find any way possible to mindlessly kill time faster until my sleep started to improve. Mm-hmm. So my daily routine, I'd wake up feeling like I was getting ran over by a train. I'd immediately feel terrible. I knew it was going to be a terrible day. My eyes would be so dry and inflamed. I feel like they're like floating out of my skull. That's the thing too, is my vision was getting worse at this point, because not only did I have brain fog and the world just looked foggy to me. But it was reaching the point where I was so exhausted that I was having difficulty like focusing my eyes on things that were right in front of me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'd be like, let's say, reading from the computer, and then my eyes would just be like constantly kind of blurring in and out of focus.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So the rest of my day, I mostly was just trying to mindlessly kill time any way possible.
Did you smoke weed?
Yeah.
You
No,
did.
I smoked a lot, like at night just to knock me out. Like I had to smoke myself into a coma, basically.
Holy shit. Like you would smoke what? Bong rips, dabs, fat L's.
I
What was
remember
your
at the time I had like a bong where I would just sit in the backyard and just for a few hours, just like sit and just chill and just take hit after smoke bowl after bowl until I was so tired I literally couldn't like physically keep my eyes open anymore. And then that's when I would go to sleep.
holy shit, man. Look, I don't ever advocate smoking weed, but I would want to smoke with you though. And like talk about shit.
I'd be down
Talk
for that.
talk
No,
about Nietzsche.
I can smoke like a chimney, and I had to because these problems.
Yeah, but honestly though, I don't recommend people young men ever smoke weed because it's always a cope. It was a cope for you. It's whenever I've smoked, it's been a cope. But I
I
could
mean, it
see,
was.
you know,
I would say it was
when I'm most tempted, to smoke weed is when I feel shitty in my body. So if you're constantly feeling shitty in your body, I can imagine that you're always reaching for a toke just to give yourself that nice little, sedative rush. Go ahead. You were saying?
Yeah, I guess I just wanted to explain then too, because I don't know if people understood what was going on, because this time period, a lot of my friends before like weren't seeing me around at social situations. I just kind of self-isolated. Um, and so what people need to understand is I always was being proactive in my situation and trying to improve my sleep quality in my situation. And I would always take advantage of any time that my sleep quality did improve.
Yes.
So I remember one day, for example, when I was using the BiPAP and I'd wake up and I felt like more of these switches had flipped in my mind. And some layers of brain fog had lifted. I woke up and suddenly I had the energy and the motivation to clean my room um, and sit down for an hour and practice the piano for the first time in like a year.
Were you also listening to Jordan Peterson at the time, or was this just a spontaneous result of you feeling good that you wanted to clean your room?
It was literally like I felt 10% better, and that was enough for my brain fog to improve maybe 10%, and that was enough to cause those lifestyle changes to happen.
So no Jordan Peterson?
No.
Okay. Interesting.
I mean, before it was like just this black hole where my room might be like get really messy, but then I just woke up and, you know, I felt 10% better, and that was enough. Like I said, it literally just feels like a switch flips in my mind. Even if
Right.
my sleep architecture improves a little bit, and then suddenly the brain fog improves and I can do more with myself.
Right. Right. Do you have an opinion on Jordan Peterson?
I don't know enough to make an informed opinion, honestly.
Right. I have an opinion. Racist, sexist, homophobic.
You think so?
No. No,
Okay.
I'm just trolling. Continue, please. So so you would feel good and then you would have this rush of energy and boom, you want to use it to do something productive.
Well, it wasn't even a rush of energy. It would be like I'd feel just still constantly exhausted. But let's say my brain fog improved enough to where I could sit down on my computer and slap a beat together. And
Hell
so I
yeah.
was getting these kinds of mild and inconsistent improvements with PAP therapy, but my symptoms were continuing to get worse. It's like here and there, I might feel 5 or 10% better, but in the long run, the symptoms were just quickly getting worse.
So you were using a BiPAP. Did you ever make a binaural beat?
Not yet,
Okay.
but I want
Just
to
wondering.
make more like ambient stuff like that.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
Yeah, so
My boy Bailey makes beats. Braun,
okay,
you ever listen to Braun, the rapper Braun?
no.
That's my boy Bailey. He's really into this space as well. He's a good musician.
Well, it'd be cool to network, have more job people network on this kind of stuff.
You guys should collab and do like some sick like craniofacial dystrophy music.
Yeah. Yeah. So, anyways, I realized I needed MMA because despite every treatment modality, my symptoms were continuing to get worse. But at the time, my parents were not okay with me doing MMA, and so I
Yeah, who
basically
wants
started.
their son to have his face cut off? Hey, Ethan, we're getting a request in the chat for you to demonstrate what your music is basically like. Do you have something you can play for us real quick? Just like something that maybe one of your darker things like that you created in some of this sickness that captures some of the blackness and the darkness.
Yeah. You can share the screen. I can play right now. I don't know which one. This was the last few songs I made right leading right up to my surgery. So I was pretty much like losing my mind when I wrote this stuff. I'll play this one, I guess.
Oh fuck. Ethan, pause it. Ethan,
Yeah.
I'm not sure we're getting the audio from that.
You're not getting audio?
I don't think so. No.
Well, I was just trying to turn the volume up right now.
No, I think I have to do something special to allow. Yeah, all I hear is an ambient rushing sound. Is there supposed to be more than an ambient rushing sound, or is that what it is? Is it an ambient rushing noise like water flowing?
Sorry, what's up? It wasn't coming through.
I don't think it was. All we heard was like an ambient rushing sound, like the sound of a running river. Is that what it was?
Oh no, that definitely wasn't what it was.
Oh fuck. How do I get the audio from that tab to play? Fucking software. I mean, I'm scrambling to figure out a way to get that to work, and I'm coming up empty. Is there a way you can like play it out of your phone into the mic that you're talking into, just to kind of circumvent? I know the audio is not going to be crisp.
Yeah, I actually could.
Yeah, I'm very curious myself as to what this is going to sound like. I'm a little scared.
Some of it's pretty scary.
Will 4560, is that my boy Will? Is that Ill Will 4560? Yeah, the album cover for sure is dope. Yo, anytime I see MSE as the album cover, I'm in, bro. By the way, is that your maxilla?
Yeah.
Too loud, too close, too close.
It's too loud?
Back it off, yeah. Closer, closer. Damn, bro, that's dark, man. So it's not coming in super clear, but what I'm hearing is very dark. Sounds like, I agree, it sounds like a horror movie. I would love to hear it in full definition, but to be honest, that's kind of what I was expecting. I mean, the way you were describing your music, I was thinking, uh, it's like Slipknot applied to a horror movie type ambient, like scary thing. And when you were describing what your life has been like and what your mental state has been like going through UARS, that's what I was imagining.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because a lot of these songs, I had so much brain fog, I couldn't think clearly when I was making it, and I literally couldn't even hear clearly either because the brain fog would even affect my hearing. So if you listen to some of these songs, it sounds like all the sounds are kind of literally foggy and kind of blurring and meshing together.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, man, that's what it sounds like. What's the timbre thing? The timbre percussion instrument that was in that.
It's actually really interesting because it was literally just random sounds and samples that I just throw together and mix and process, keep just processing, mixing, putting more
Mm-hmm.
random stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So some of the percussion sounds, it was like just some video of a guy online like banging on pots and pans, but I just totally like processed it beyond recognition.
Damn, bro. Damn. Well, thank you for sharing that. And why don't you continue with your story? Where were we at?
Yeah, so it was when I needed MMA. My parents didn't want me to do it, but I knew I needed to start planning it. And so I reached out to my orthodontist and I'm like, look, I know I'm going to need MMA. I know the MSE won't fix my problem. I'm tired of wasting my life, tired of being miserable. I need to start doing consultations and keep this ball rolling. And he said, Ethan, I'm fully supportive of you in this. And so the plan was initially I wanted to consult with 4 or 5 surgeons, but the only surgeon I ended up consulting with was the surgeon I was referred to, um, that I ended up going to.
Yeah.
And so at this point, my symptoms were progressing to such extremes. I was experiencing trauma and dissociative symptoms at an unprecedented rate. As time was going on, I was becoming more detached and disconnected, both from myself and the world. Even in terms of other people that have trauma and dissociative symptoms, my symptoms were very extreme. Um, Kind of going into some of the depersonalization, I had become so dissociated. I was constantly reality checking myself. I was compulsively would do things like check my hands, asking myself if I'm alive or in a dream, spending multiple hours a day doing things like staring at myself in the mirror because I couldn't understand what I was looking at. Um,
Jeez,
Immersively,
man.
yeah, no, like I said, very, very extreme and rapidly worsening trauma and dissociative symptoms.
Wow. Wow. So go ahead, keep going. This
Yeah,
must eventually this must bring us to an MMA surgery.
my whole life and existence was just revolved around me killing time minute by minute in this kind of trance-like state until I could start sleeping better. I was so anhedonic. I was so emotionally flatlined. Nothing could distract me from the kind of pain I was in. And Ethan, as a person, had completely disappeared and was just replaced with this emotionless zombie, basically.
Right.
Um, so, fall of 2021, I found a breaking point. And despite being a very strong person, I realized that everyone has a breaking point. I hit a point where I simply couldn't go on anymore. I
Mm-hmm.
was at the end of my rope. Every cell in my nervous system was screaming at me that I needed to sleep better right now. And so I
Mm-hmm.
told my orthodontist, I'm at the end of my rope. I don't have patience to keep chasing doctors down. And so I said I was going to go to the surgeon that he originally referred me to. And he said this was great news and he was excited for me. But a lot of the people on the Discord server were warning me that that was not a good idea. And that I was basically rolling the dice, and that there are other people in that server where they went to kind of local in network, ran basically just not a big name surgeon, and didn't get good results. And now they need to go and get revisions from some of these like elite private airway focused surgeons. So at the time, a lot of people were, um, recommending big name surgeons
Right.
like Casey Lee and Professor Alfaro, but my family didn't really take me seriously enough to go dropping a bunch of money.
Right.
Um, with all,
Gunson, Alfaro, Movahead, Mirko Raffaini, the same, Sullivan, whatever, the same 5 or 6 names get thrown around in the elite conversation all the time. Yeah, and the poor man pays twice.
yep. So they were warning me. They said you might not get good results. You might need to get a revision. Um, but I was in so much pain. I was even trying to justify potentially needing a revision. I said I need to sleep better right now, which of course that's not a good mentality. Like you want to try and get MMA right the first time and not need to go through the revision process like I need to go through.
No, I couldn't imagine doing MMA twice, but believe it or not, it's pretty common.
It's unfortunately
Yeah.
there's a lot of other people in that server where they need to get revisions.
Yeah. Right.
So I left that server and I was kind of a battle where I was fighting my insurance company to get them to cover my surgery, and I was also fighting to get my passport renewed in case my insurance fell through. I was planning on going to medical tourism to Mexico, go to a place called Cancun Dental Design. I was like staying in contact with them. And so I was pretty much completely dissociated from reality. I was existing in this survival mode. The kind of pain I was in was just like roasting in hell on fire. And so eventually I finally won the insurance case, basically, and was able to get the surgery here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I won the case. I got my surgery date. And once I got my surgery date, my life was basically just me waiting until I could get the surgery. And there was a lot of optimism, not just from me, but from my friends and family. I was hoping it would be a new start. I'd finally be sleeping better. My brain fog would lift. And so it's frustrating to me now, like looking back at how it unfolded. I was very optimistic about this surgery, and then it ended up being a complete botch.
Tell us. I know you're getting there, but well, you want me to just let you get there? You want to just keep going? Because I want to hear more about how it's a botch, because you look good, man. I mean, and you're functioning good on this call. You don't seem dissociated right now. Your eyes are wide open. They're white. They look awake, alert. They look healthy. Your jaw looks sharp. I mean, but I'll let you get there.
Yeah. I'm somewhat glad I got the surgery when I did, because I'm concerned that if it was delayed by even a few months, then it could have been disastrous. I could have became so dissociated I acted in some way and hurt myself. So it was a very brutal recovery process.
Tell us about that. Tell us about how the suffering of the recovery from MMA compared to the suffering of your everyday life as a chronically sick young man.
I mean, I just felt so like detached at this point that I was just kind of like I just remember thinking like there wasn't really anything that could have mentally prepared me for the recovery. But I think that if I had gone into MMA already sleeping better and not like literally like a tired corpse, then it probably wouldn't have been that bad, admittedly.
Did you like the pain?
No. I mean, like my jawbones were aching, but
bro, you're such an introspective guy, and I think so many people wonder about how bad really is MMA. Like, how would you describe what it feels like to have your fucking shit sawed off and then reattached with plates? Like, you woke up. Like,
okay, let me explain that process.
Walk us through that, man.
So yeah, they wheeled me in, closed my, I just remember them laying me down on the table. I closed my eyes and then woke up, and I was in the recovery room or whatever, and then blinked again, and it was like I was in my own little recovery room where I spent the next 12 hours basically spitting blood up. My face was like just swollen like a balloon. Blood was coming out of my mouth. It was getting all over my gown. My jawbones were just constantly aching.
You felt an aching throbbing in your face?
Yeah, it was like the skin on my face, the soft tissue was numb, but the actual bones were just constantly sore and aching.
Wow. Bro, you're getting a ton of fucking hype in the comments right now about how good you look and how good you're acting on this chat. So I think we're all curious to see where things went wrong and your thoughts on that. But tell us, I personally want to hear more about the recovery. So yeah, you felt some throbbing in your bones, deep in the bones. Did you feel like, oh my God, what did I do to myself? How could I let this mutilation happen to me? This is hell. I can't get through this. Or tell us more.
No, I just knew that I just needed to like push through it. Yeah, like I said, I don't really feel like anything could have mentally prepared me for like the 10 days of recovery.
10 days,
Because
good number. Hmm.
well, I mean, like the initial 10 days of like um just chipmunk. Um, yeah,
Did
I
you
couldn't talk.
fast? Did you fast those 10 days?
So I was on a liquid diet. I was eating liquids.
Did you have an appetite?
It was definitely like lowered.
Did you consider fasting since you had like learned about how that can accelerate healing?
I had actually thought about it before, but I ended up not doing it. I figured it probably was best to get nutrition actually.
Yeah, to help your body metabolize and recover,
Yeah.
rebuild.
And so yeah, I wasn't sleeping well either because my whole airway was swollen.
Did you have fixed braces with your surgery?
The braces were on before.
And they were tied together after?
It wasn't wired shut, no.
Okay. Okay. So you could actually open your mouth and spit.
Yeah.
Okay.
So really the whole first 3 months of the recovery was mostly just waiting for my airway to slowly unswell.
Interesting.
And so there were some improvements I was noticing. I no longer felt like I was waking up getting ran over by a train, and no longer felt like my eyeballs were floating out of my skull. But I still just felt constantly exhausted. I was starting to notice some improvements in my mood and being more optimistic. But it took 3 months until I started noticing more significant improvements, or at least felt better enough until I got a new job, which is an entry level position at my city public library, which was this has been the longest that I've been able to work in like 5 years, basically, because of this problem.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, so when I first started working there, I was working 3 days a week, and that was only 12 hours. And at first, that was overwhelming because I was still so tired. Um, but around this time period, my symptoms were improving. So I started leaving the house more. I started hitting up the clubs. I started going to local raves again, and wanted to make more of my mark in the music scene. And so
Wow.
again, yeah, it's keep in mind too, like this kind of what I said earlier. I always try and be proactive with my lifestyle and my situation.
I know
So
you do, man. Your story suggests that completely, in spades.
even if my sleep just improves a little bit, it basically would feel like a layer of brain fog will lift, and it becomes easier for me to access a part of my mind. Whereas before, it was like the brain fog was locking me out or preventing me from accessing that part of my mind.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so I was working 12 hours a week, but I was still exhausted. I couldn't really engage with my hobbies. But I started using the money that I would make working in the library to get tickets to go to clubs and music festivals on the weekend.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of engaging with hobbies, this video has been stuck at 29 likes for several minutes. I would like people to engage with the like button right now. Please pause from what you're doing, take out your phone, unlock it, go into the video and hit the like button, please. I'd really appreciate that. Thank you for making the effort to do that. It's a low cost, no cost way of supporting this channel and people like Ethan getting their story out there for you all to learn from. Um, yeah, so you did the surgery. You're feeling better to some degree, at least enough to start proactively going out more and getting more involved in the music scene.
Yeah. It was still a struggle for me though, where let's say Saturday would roll around, I'd be like, I'm going to hit up the club and try and enjoy myself in any way I could, even though I'd still go to the club and I still had brain fog and PTSD symptoms, which I was actually diagnosed with PTSD. I don't think I mentioned that yet, but I can talk about that because of my symptoms. And so I'd go to the club and I'd still have constant brain fog, and I still felt like I couldn't really engage with the world around me. But it improved enough to where at least I could try to start to enjoy myself more. My
Okay.
situation was getting better.
Okay. Okay. We like progress.
Yeah. So really, it was once I went past the 6 month mark, I realized that the surgery was botched and that I would need to get a revision. And it was around this time I began developing a progressively worsening crick, which is localized to a specific region of my neck. And so, yeah, as this one went down, I was more disappointed with the aesthetic result, as well as there's lip incompetence now. I can actually go back and show like the scans and explain the mechanics of what the botch was.
Sure, sure. Because I think some of us are going to require convincing that this was a botch.
Yeah,
Because
so
you look good, you're acting good. I mean, compared to what you've described earlier in this video, you seem to be performing very well, very high functioning. Like I said, you look pretty good. So tell us what went wrong in your opinion.
well, I do want to make this or just state this that uh, this is something that I have been told is I think I'm just very smart and able to compensate for feeling very impaired. Um,
So you don't feel good right now on this call? Do you feel impaired?
oh, I'm still very severely symptomatic. I mean,
Okay.
not compared to the hell I was in before the surgery, but I still have all the same symptoms. They're just a bit easier to manage. But you know, in terms of the brain fog, the derealization, anhedonia, like I still have all the same symptoms.
No doubt, man. But just like matter of factly speaking, on this call, you've been quick, you've been clever, you've been articulate. You've responded well to my stupid jokes in terms of knowing when I was trying to be funny, even if I wasn't actually being funny. So your social skills have been on point. So, you know, if you are actually feeling the way you've described yourself feeling, then you are one hell of a compensator and coper, like in real time.
Yeah, no, like I said, this is my personal belief is if I did not grow up with this problem, I think I would already be recognized as being some kind of prodigy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um,
Well, you're a JawHacks prodigy now, man. I mean, you're going to be JawHacks famous after this. This is
hopefully, my
some,
music.
yeah. That well, the music will have to perform for itself, you know. But in terms of your deep dive into MMA, I think this is probably the best MMA content I have on my channel. Walk
All
us
right,
through this. That top right photo, that's an after photo, and the bottom right is a before. What's happening here?
yeah. So in terms of the movements, Lefort one is I kind of mentioned this earlier. He did a Lefort one and advanced my maxilla 9 millimeters. There's two ways that the maxilla can be rotated counterclockwise. There's impaction, which is where a wedge is cut in the front of the maxilla and rotated like that. And then there's a downgraft, which is where it's basically bone grafting on the back of the maxilla to rotate it like that. So what I got was impaction. And so the surgeon advanced my maxilla 9 millimeters, which that given my that's a good movement. That's a solid movement. Um, but he rotated via impaction. Um, and so he rotated the mandible up to match the occlusion with the maxilla, but he was only able to get advancement of 6 millimeters on the BSSO.
Okay, so you're drawing a distinction between impaction and what?
Downgrafting.
Explain to me like I'm a fourth grader. What's the difference between impaction and downgrafting in an MMA surgery?
Yeah, so if you look at the upper jaw right here,
Okay.
impaction is where a wedge is kind of cut in the jaw here, and then it's rotated up like that. A downgraft is basically like a bone graft on the back of the maxilla here, and it's used to rotate like that.
So you're telling, so I explain it to me again like I'm a fourth grader. So there's a wedge that's cut off of the maxilla, and then with a downgraft, you're saying they actually add bone matrix and they do a bone graft at the back of the maxilla?
That's my
Please.
understanding. Is that if when you rotate via impaction, you're basically cutting a wedge here and using that to rotate it. Whereas if you do a downgraft, you're basically doing a bone graft on it's called posterior downgrafting. So this is the maxilla. You do bone grafting here and use that to rotate it like that.
But why don't they just take the contiguous maxillary bone and rotate the whole thing? I don't understand.
What do you mean?
I don't
Oh,
understand why a wedge needs to be cut or why a downgraft needs to occur. Like Because when I imagine MMA surgery, I just imagine them taking the maxilla, right? And then just taking it from here and then just bringing the whole maxilla forward and up. So I didn't even know that they fucked around with the front of it or with the back of it in terms of cutting extra bone or adding extra bone.
Well, that's how they get the rotation. So if your jaws are developed in vertically developed way, in order to advance them, you have to rotate them.
Right. So they
Yeah.
rotate the maxilla, but I guess I don't understand what wedging or downgrafting actually looks like or what that entails. I've never actually even heard those terms ever in my life, which is a little embarrassing.
Yeah, I mean, these are things too, like that we would talk about like on the Discord server.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember too, like sometimes there were images that were shared because I wish I had. I mean, I might even be able to pull up on YouTube like
Nice. I'm glad YouTube is recommending my video. That's a good sign. By the way, bro, that's very bold of you to load up your YouTube homepage because a YouTube homepage is a very personal thing.
maybe I should. It was just kind of whatever. But
If
yeah,
you want to,
that's
if you want to get to know someone, just look at their YouTube homepage. You can know exactly the type of stuff they're interested in, the type of stuff they think about. You don't even want to see my homepage.
that's what impaction looks like, though,
Uh,
is where a wedge is cut like that and then it's rotated like that.
Ew. Wow. A
So,
picture is
and
worth 1,000 words and a video is worth 1,000,000, isn't it?
yeah. I could try and find one for downgrafting too.
Show me that one more time, please. This is what you did.
Yeah, I was impacted.
This is called impaction. Ew. What do they do with that bone wedge? Do they just throw it in the garbage?
I guess so. I don't know. I'm trying to think of.
I would use it as a doorstop.
Trying to see if I can find one that shows downgrafting.
Bro, I got super chats coming in, and let me just, Ethan, hang tight. These videos are amazing. Max Smith, £5 or euros, pounds. I'm not sure. Thank you, bro. Really appreciate that, man. Pankaj Jain just donated 400 something. I don't know what that is. I hope that that translates to like a couple of US dollars. I don't know what, but 400 is a big number. Holy shit. Pankaj, my boy, I know you've been with JawHacks for 1,000,000,000 years, and thank you, man. Damn. I'll look into what that means later, but thank you so much for the support, bro. Yes, can you get us an image of downgrafting now so that we can see the difference?
Yeah, I thought there was one on Randy Sanovich's channel. Might have showed.
Okay, $5. Good.
I wish I remembered the video because I think it was Randy Sanovich had a video where he explained it.
Hey, if anyone has a good down grafting video that they can share with us, email it to ronald@jawhacks.com, and then I will play it. Teamwork is dream work. Let's help Ethan maybe find a video to explain this point. I think we're all interested. I'm learning a ton about MMA on this call. I'm sure you all are too. And now we know what impaction looks like. It's when they.
I'll show you it.
Whose Instagram is this? Her name? Oh, Alfaro.
This is Alfaro. I'm trying to see if I can find like scans from Alfaro. Like I can basically show. Oh yeah, here we. God dang it! It's always. Uh,
Maybe we can find a video on Pornhub of impaction or of downgrafting. Let me check my email, see if anyone came through with a link for downgrafting. We might have to abort this mission at some point, Ethan, if we otherwise the retention is just going to drop off so dramatically. Otherwise, I'm just going to stand here and tell jokes while you look.
well, this is kind of an example of it's basically bone grafting here, like in the back of the maxilla here, and that's what's used to rotate it.
Right. So basically, instead of cutting bone off the top of the maxilla, they just move the maxilla forward, rotate it, and then add bone at the back.
Yeah, that's my understanding.
So it's like a more holistic is not the right word, but it's less of a shortcut. It's a more airway friendly way of doing it that adds more bone rather than takes bone away to accomplish the same thing.
Yeah, no, that was part of the problem is that my case required downgrafting.
Right.
So
Let's go with this, Ethan. Let's go with this. Practically speaking, what's the difference in effect between impaction and downgrafting, and how are you suffering from that change?
I think that if the surgeon did downgrafting, it might have helped expand the airway a bit more back here. But what's more important is that if I had downgrafting, he would have been able to have gotten the larger mandibular advancement down here. So he only advanced my my mandible 6 millimeters.
So the fact that he impacted rather than downgrafted you limited how far forward your mandible could come. And is this what's wrong with your MMA? Your mandible didn't come far enough forward?
Yeah, that's a large part of the reason. Usually with MMA, you want at least 10 millimeters, but even more like maybe 12 or 13. But he basically just, my lower jaw is still recessed. He just compensated by giving me a huge genioplasty.
But on your after scan, it looks like your airway is huge. Am I misinterpreting that?
You might be, and that's actually why I wanted to talk to you about this. Is what you'll notice is that
wait, in all of this, you actually have a question for me at some point? That would be hilarious if you did.
So I noticed this. I was going to do consultation soon with Larry Wolford.
Big Larry, yeah. Big Larry is basically the Sigma male of MMA.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so when I
you just gave it away, bro. Usually people pay me for that information, but now it's just out there. No one is going to have to pay me to consult for me to tell them who the top surgeon is. It's Wolford. Yeah. Fuck, bro. You blew up my spot.
Yeah. So I'm consulting Wolford in a few weeks.
Tell him I said what up.
Okay. But I emailed Denise, who's the receptionist at his office, and I said, I don't think that my airway scans were done accurately because I was adopting a compressed neck posture when my scan was being taken. And then I realized, oh, well, that's probably not a problem because Wolford would realize what I'm talking about when I mean by that.
Mm-hmm.
And so that goes back to what I was talking about earlier. Yeah, that goes back to my story of once I realized it was after the 6-month mark, I was starting to have a progressively worsening crick, which is localized to a very specific region of my neck. Mm-hmm. It basically feels like my airway is now lopsided. And it feels like my lower jaw still is recessed. It's just now I have a big chin.
So to make a very long story short, in summary, you feel like in spite of this MMA surgery, in spite of some gains, you're still not breathing as well as you should because your airway is limited by the lack of advancement of the mandible that the surgeon gave you. He didn't bring your mandible forward enough. Your airway is really much worse than this top right photo indicates. The only reason it's wide open like that in that photo is because you're basically jutting your chin forward like this and opening your airway artificially.
Well, if you kind of even just look at my side profile when I try and maintain a straight neck posture, you can tell that there still is mandibular recession. And so if they got a larger counter rotation,
bro, your side profile looks. Stay in the side profile, please. I can't believe this is the first time we're actually seeing your side profile in this whole video. We've been at it for an hour and 34 minutes and 53 seconds. No, stay there, please. Bro, your side profile, it's decent. I mean, it's not, look, it's not perfect, but no, it's okay. It's good. I mean, I think it's good, but I see what you're saying, though.
I'm not saying there's something wrong with the way my face looks. I'm just saying mechanically, mechanically speaking, like I said, if you got more of counterclockwise rotation of the maxilla, then there would not be as much recession in the lower jaw.
I understand.
And so that's kind of like physiologically, that's what the airway problem is.
So he under advanced you. A lot of times people need revisions because they've been over advanced. You were under advanced.
Yeah. Under advanced and under rotated.
Damn. I got to say, man, if I had to pick one way to be botched, it would be to be over advanced and over rotated. Would you agree with that?
I definitely would agree. Yeah.
Right. I can't believe these fucking guys cut your face off and then they pussy out and they just don't bring you forward enough. You know what I mean? It's like, if you've got the guy's face cut off, now is the time to give him the glory.
I think the surgeon did the best job he could with the knowledge he had. I just don't think he was comfortable doing downgrafting. And that's, I think, what my case needed. So
you're saying when you do impaction, there's a physiological limit as to how far you can get advanced when there's impaction that occurs?
I'm not sure if it's just due to the structure of my jaws or just in general, but I do think that impaction, that it does, limit the airway in that sense. Do you think the number one criterion that a person should ask when they're consulting with the surgeon is, are you going to impact me or are you going to downgraft me? I'm not sure, because that's the thing is, if you go to some of these big name surgeons like Casey Lee or Alfaro, mostly what they do is downgrafting. But there might be some cases where impaction is preferred for some people. Like for someone who doesn't need that much advancement? Maybe. Listen to me. Here's what I'm asking. Does impaction instead of downgrafting inevitably result in less advancement? Is it an inherently restricted way of doing an MMA? Is that what you're saying? Yeah. So impaction is like SDE and downgrafting is like BDE. What do you mean by that? Impaction is small dick energy and downgrafting is big dick energy. Yeah. Well, keep in mind too, also with downgrafting, I think it might also benefit more kind of the back of the airway here by getting a more rotation. I'm sorry. Let me go back to the screen share. Repeat that thought. That by downgrafting, you're getting more of a rotation, which can help expand the airway more back here. Right. I do think too, by the way, I think part of the reason that I didn't feel much better with the MARPI was that we got it expanded too much like anteriorly and not enough posteriorly. So you did an MSE? Yeah. Can I see what the roof of your mouth looks like? Bro, that thing looks good. Yeah, that's how I feel about your maxilla too. I saw that smile. Hell yeah, let me see that again, bro. Bro. Can I put out a poll? How do I fucking do a poll? I'm doing a poll, bro. I'm doing a poll. Start a poll. Is Ethan's maxilla Ella
or a week?
Now I have a good maxilla now.
Poll. Start a poll. Ethan's maxilla upper arch solid? All right, we're putting this out to the community. Is Ethan's upper arch good? Show us that upper arch one more time, Ethan. All right, everyone, vote now. Go ahead and vote. Yeah, bro, 94% is yes. 95% it's a good arch.
Yeah, no, we got a lot of good expansion.
Yeah.
And that helped too. This is something I'd recommend. Again, for whatever reason, the CPAP, the BiPAP, the MSE, it didn't help much with my symptoms, but the MSE did improve my daytime nasal breathing. And again, I think it's partly that we might have just expanded too much in the front. But this is something I'd recommend to people doing MMA is that, even just sticking a Marpy in there and getting a few millimeters of expansion will really help like the outcome of the MMA in terms of getting better nasal breathing.
For sure, man. I mean, I'm always recommending people MSE then MMA. I will even go as far as to say this. By the way, the consensus is 100,000% that your maxilla is, I mean, that's an A minus A maxilla. I mean, it's not Lamar Jackson, right? But that thing is fucking big. Okay. Respect to that maxilla. I would go as far as to say, just to comment about what you just said, if I could go back to 2016 before I started all the bullshit orthodontics that I've done, I've been in orthodontics since 2016. If I could wipe it all out, go back and start all over, I would do MSE, MMA, ship it, done. So this is pretty much the go-to, man. MSE, MMA.
Yeah.
So what do you think you need, bro? I mean, your maxilla is good. Your nasal, how's your nasal breathing? Sum it up for us. Is it good or bad?
It's amazing, except sometimes it gets really bad. So like I said, I have a problem called vasomotor rhinitis where in December and January I get a lot of sinus pressure and that sometimes makes me congested. But in like the spring and the summer when I don't have those problems, I literally breathe like a gorilla.
Yeah. Yeah, damn, bro. So, okay, your nasal breathing is solid. Then your revision is just to advance you just need more advancement. And you think, will that be a solution to all your problems? Like, will that be it?
Well, I'm going to talk to Wolford, Casey Lee, and Michael Geisner is what I'm planning on consulting with. It's possible Casey Lee might even recommend doing ease. He might not feel like I got enough posterior expansion, but it might be worth getting his opinion. But I think it's good also to ask Casey Lee's opinion because, kind of even going back and looking at those airway scans, Lee describes himself as kind of like a plumber that goes through and tries to see, like what's going on in someone's airway.
I would stick to Wolford, man. Just based on, and I'm not trying to throw shade on anyone, but just my advice to you is if you really want an opinion as to whether or not you need a revision, I would really stick to Wolford, maybe Sullivan. This is an elite group that, I'm referring you to, and you know these people as well. But I'm not saying don't go see Casey Lee, but I'm saying that I would go see Wolford and Sullivan.
I'm going to Wolford and then Casey Lee after that.
Okay. Yeah, I guess, get multiple opinions and then take the average. That's a good approach. Okay. Wow. So have we reached the end of your story? I mean, is this where you're at now? You're just getting ready to get some more MMA consults to see if you're going to do a revision?
I was just going to wrap up. I have like a little spiel, like my kind of closing spiel.
Yeah. Fire away.
Yeah. So that brings me to where I am now. It's been 9.5 months. my situation has improved significantly, and just the fact that I left my room and got a job is a huge improvement from where I was before. I still have all the same symptoms, and they are still very severe and preventing me from being able to live my life. Right now, I'm very frustrated. I'm frustrated I had to grow up with this problem and no doctor or medical professional could identify it earlier. And then I had to grow up in this progressively worse mental fog and watch everything I love and care about slowly stripped from me and replaced with a mindless zombie. I'm frustrated there wasn't more incentive from my family earlier in helping me get this problem figured out. And I had to progress to these extremes where it was too late. And that after this hell that I went through, I ended up getting a botched surgery. So even now, much of my life, I'm still just waiting to sleep better. I still don't understand what life is like outside the fog. I want to be able to tap into my potential and live life to the fullest and wake up in the morning with energy, as opposed to still just feeling like a tired corpse, just kind of schlepping through life. And so I need your guys' help. I'm at a difficult place mentally and financially. And the only thing I have to show for myself from this experience is the music project, Origin of Styx. So if you can just listen to it and share it with people, then that would mean a lot to me. That's pretty much it.
Ethan, that was an amazing wrap up. I hear you. I feel you. Please, everyone, take some time. Google Origin of Styx. It's available anywhere that music is available to be heard. If you take a liking to it, then support it in whatever way that you can. Ethan's got a lot of catching up to do in his life. He spent most of his life completely handicapped. I agree with everything you said, by the way. It's a travesty that so many people go so many decades of their lives with undiagnosed sleep disordered breathing. You are a victim of that negligence of our system and our medical leadership. I do think you have made real progress. Objectively speaking, your maxilla looks good. Your nasal breathing is good. Your MMA surgery did advance you, like you said, what, 8 millimeters?
9 millimeter maxillary advancement.
You've made real progress, bro. I know it's not perfect, but it sounds like you have been walked off the ledge. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Do you think you're in a position now where you can start to build your life?
You know, I felt like I'm honestly not sure because there's actually still a bit of swelling in my airway. And I've also been having seasonal affective problems. So December and January, have been having bad symptoms. Like I said, my situation is just that anytime I notice improvements in my brain fog, then I just try and take advantage of those improvements and apply my life. And so even just looking at where I am now in the past year since getting the surgery, the fact I left my room, I didn't, try to hurt myself basically is where I was mentally. Just suicidal and at the end of my rope dealing with that problem. And so the fact I left my room, got a job, started hitting up the clubs, started doing part-time school again. To me, I'm frustrated that I still have all these same symptoms, but at the same time, looking back from where I was back then, that still is a night and day difference to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. How about coming on this podcast?
Yeah.
There's probably hundreds of people that have seen this.
Right? Yeah. I mean, it was even kind of stressful for me, but I was like, I need to do this. I need to share this experience.
I mean, bro, you've really crushed it, man. I mean, I've enjoyed this tremendously. And so I'm really proud of you for coming on and impressed with your performance. I can't help but think that maybe your result is better than you realize, man. Look, when I had my headache surgery, I had really bad chronic headaches and I was fucked up for a while. I couldn't work. I couldn't do anything for a multi-year period because I was just one big headache. After I had my surgery and the pain went cut down by 80%. One thing my surgeon told me was, Ron, it's going to take a while for you psychologically to start realizing that you don't have to deal with this pain anymore, or to learn how to live with less pain, because the pain becomes almost like a source of identity for you. And once the pain is relieved to some degree, you've solved the problem, but in a way you've created a new problem, which is that you have all this newfound time and energy and health and well-being, and you've got to make use of it. And you've got to find a way to occupy yourself that doesn't involve looking for solutions to your health problem anymore. Not saying that you're totally in that category, but based on what I'm seeing in terms of the correction of your jaws, you're at least partially in that category. Go ahead, get the revision, get another 30% boost in your breathing. I encourage it. God knows that I've never settled when it comes to my airway. I've just kept looking for more and more and more, and I've found it. If I quit after different tooth-borne expanders, I would have never got the MSE, and I would have never got my intermolar width jacked up by 5+ millimeters. I would have never blown open my left nostril and learned how to breathe through my nose. I would have never been able to mew properly. Because I never settled, I was able to actually find something that did help me. So keep going, man. I encourage you to keep going, but also keep going with lifestyle stuff too. Someone asked in the comments before, does he exercise? I was wondering the same thing because I didn't hear you. Well, you did mention before cycling and stuff, but you seem a little bit like you don't have a ton of muscle mass. I would like to see you doing 20 minutes of cardiovascular exercise every day and lifting heavy things, kettlebell swings, Turkish get-ups, pull-ups, dips. Those are the 4 exercises I recommend you do 4 or 5 times a week. I'd like to see you jack up your endorphins by exercising and lifting, putting on some body mass. And then, as another commenter said, I would like to see you work on income now. Income is an important thing. I know you're trying to get income from your artistic endeavors, but I think in the meantime, it would do a huge boost to your self-confidence to just put some money in the bank doing something solid and steady. It's incredibly difficult to make money off of art, especially pure art like music or fictional writing or film. It's a little bit easier to make art off of like an informative YouTube channel, make money off of like an informative YouTube channel or a nonfiction book, something like that, a how-to book. If that's up your alley, you could try something like that. Otherwise, bro, you said you're 24?
23.
Bro, you're such a baby. Oh my God, man. You've got your whole life ahead of you and then some. God, man, when I was 23, I didn't know my ass from my elbow. I spent my 20s living in a van, bumming around Buddhist monasteries, going to rainbow gatherings, fucking hiking the Florida National Scenic Trail. You I hadn't even started my health journey by the time you've already pretty much finished yours and have it all figured out. That's the benefit of being high IQ, right? You figured it out early, you fixed it early, but you got to keep going now. And instead of, it's time for you to start putting some of that brilliance applied to making money, getting your own place, saving up some coin, and building a life for yourself as a man. That's your next hurdle, I think, as you start to wrap up this airway chapter of your life. You don't have to respond to that. Can we go to the comments? Some people have questions for you. Are you willing to take a few questions from the audience?
Yeah, of course.
All right. Anyone who has a question for Ethan, especially about his surgery or anything, can you go ahead and put that in the comments and then I'll add. Can you see the comments?
Oh, I can pull it up.
Someone's asking here. Yeah, I agree with Den Tombstone. You could be a legit man in a few short years. I think the only thing standing in between you and manhood is an apartment and 50 grand in the bank. And you can definitely accomplish that in 3 to 5 years. How old is he? He's 24.
23.
Yeah, Den Tombstone is crushing it. You will feel so good lifting weights. I couldn't agree more. What's your height and weight, Ethan?
I think I'm 5'10" and weigh like 125 pounds.
Wow, you're pretty tall too. Do you have any desire to date or anything like that? Is that on your radar?
No.
No. Someday?
Maybe.
Was Schopenhauer asexual?
Schopenhauer was frustrated by the desires of life.
He thought that sexual desire was base.
Yeah.
I mean, we know Nietzsche wasn't opposed to it. He fucking died of syphilis from the whorehouses, right?
Well, allegedly. The myth of syphilis. Some people have argued that's a myth that he didn't actually have syphilis, but I don't actually know enough historically.
Yeah, it's true. It's a speculation. Okay, I have a question here for me, Ron. What do you use for anti-aging? Steak is what I use for anti-aging. Also, broken. I think broken is the same. I think he's the troll, but I love this guy, but um, I think it is. Anyway, I part of what I do, man, is I just don't use a lot of synthetic products, and I haven't for over 10 years. So simple soaps, simple no lotion, just a little coconut oil here and there. Very little input of toxic substances into or onto my body. Low stress. Anytime something stressful starts happening in my life, I adjust my mind or I adjust my logistics to not have to deal with it. So I live a pretty low stress life. I'm self employed, which allows me to avoid the stress of working in corporate America. I don't do drugs. I don't drink. Those also have a prevent accelerated aging. What else do I account? I only drink water. I don't drink any bullshit. No, very low sugar diet. I fast. I intermittent fast. I basically only eat between the hours of 10 and 5 p.m. most days, and that's been happening for years and years and years. What other anti-aging tips? Exercise, sunlight. I run every morning outside for 2 miles, so I get 20 minutes of sunlight a day minimum year round. I lift heavy things, kettlebells specifically, and body weight exercises. Bro, basically anti-aging, and I'm not saying that I'm some exemplar of anti-aging. I'm 32 years old. I'll be 33 in May. You decide for yourself. All I do is try to live my healthiest life, and this is what I look like. What you see is what you get. You've seen me all over my channel. I don't know if there's any magic tricks for anti-aging, but I would say just be healthy and let the cards fall. Sunscreen, fuck no. Never. No sunscreen, no sunglasses, ever. I use Dr. Bronner's. The only parts of my body that I use soap on are my armpits and my groin area, my crotch and my ass. It's the only part of my body I use soap for. I literally never ever ever use soap on my face or on like my arms and torso and shit. Only the armpits and the crotch area. For my hair, I about once or twice a week I use Dr. Bronner's, which is a Castile soap. I've been using Castile soap for years. I don't use regular shampoo and conditioner. For my hair, I use some different things. And by the way, I've got a long way to go in terms of getting my hair figured out. But I use a product called Dirty by Lush. Lush is like a natural hygiene product company. They use mostly natural ingredients in their stuff. There's a little bit of bullshit in it, but not much. So I use that for my hair once in a while, a couple times a week, maybe, or like on a day like today when I know I'm going to be on camera. Other things I've used in my hair, coconut oil, very light. I've actually used beef tallow in my hair, very light. Interestingly enough, beef tallow, which for the most part consists of stearic acid. Stearic acid is an ingredient that's commonly found in shaving creams, like shaving creams from the 1800s, or even in a lot of hair creams like Dirty by Lush, like I was telling you about before. Stearic acid is an ingredient in that product too. So you can just get some beef tallow, put a little bit of that, fucking put it anywhere you want. In general, if a hygiene product can be eaten, such as coconut oil, beef tallow, then that's a perfect thing to use on your skin, because if it would go into your body, then it's fair game to go on the outside of your body. Another huge health hack that I've mentioned before is squatting on the toilet instead of sitting on the toilet. If you're still sitting on the toilet, then you're a fucking beta male. Okay? Stop sitting on the toilet. Just stop. Squat on the toilet. Sitting on the toilet is the deadliest thing you can do. I had my appendix out when I was 13, and I guarantee you, if I was squatting on the toilet as a kid instead of sitting and shitting, then I wouldn't have lost my appendix. The reason people lose their appendix is because when you sit on the toilet, it's very physically strenuous on the intestines. It causes lots of pressure and strain and causes the appendix to get backed up. And that's what causes it to get infected and pop. I want to smell you, Ron. You're welcome to, but first you got to find me. Oh, deodorant. There's a product called Primal Pit Paste that's baking soda and coconut oil based. It's not great, but it gets the job done. And then on the odd occasion that I actually go out and am hanging out like at a party, which is rare, maybe, once or twice a month, I'm actually out seeing people in a large social setting, I will use real deodorant that's unhealthy and that probably has a lot of bullshit in it, but that gets the job done in situations like that. But on a daily basis, I use no deodorant or I use Primal Pit Paste. How do you protect your skin from radiation? The key to protecting your skin from radiation is to avoid things that deplete your skin of natural protectants. So, avoid air conditioning. Like when I hate air conditioning. Air conditioning dries your skin out of natural oils and then makes you more vulnerable when you go outside into the sun in the summer. And then don't wash your skin with bullshit soaps that strip you of natural protecting oils as well. So that's how you can become less vulnerable to UV and destructive sunlight. That's the missing link, man. When people say, oh, sunlight causes cancer, it might cause cancer if your skin is stripped of all the good stuff by you using bullshit products on it. All right, enough about me. Ethan, have you had teeth removed for surgery or during orthodontics to get you ready for surgery?
No, I just had my wisdom teeth removed.
Okay. What do you think about when surgeons say they want to remove premolars before they operate? What do you think about that?
I don't really know enough about removing the premolars. Honestly, I don't really think I can make an informed opinion.
Okay. Anything else for Ethan? Did you find any questions? I saw you scrolling, Ethan.
If anyone has questions, you can go ahead and ask me. I'll read it.
Max Smith, EMF exposure. I agree. I have the Wi-Fi shut off. Everything is hardwired around here. Occasionally, I turn the Wi-Fi on if I need to upload something directly from my phone. But I totally agree. EMF is bad. Oh, I wear pants. I'll show you. I wear pants that have a phone pocket down low. Where the fuck? This is a phone pocket right here. So instead of carrying my phone in my regular pocket, I put it right here. And that keeps it away from my nuts. So that's another little hack. But yeah, for sure, EMF is dangerous. And I think 10, 20, 30 years from now, we're going to find out EMF is way worse than we suspect. Ethan, do you know how many millimeters of expansion you got with your MSE?
I'm honestly not sure. I pretty much maxed it though.
Was it a 10 millimeter appliance?
I think so, but I'm not sure.
Okay.
I think I had the same problem you mentioned where like I reached a point where I started having pain like here and I kind of found that limit and I was like, I think I'm good. Cool.
Right. Graham Stoney has asked a few different times now about your pre-surgical planning and how much of that occurred. Do you know why weren't you able to identify this problem in the pre-surgical planning?
That's a great question. Like I said, as my situation was getting worse and worse, it was that when I decided to go to this surgeon, initially I had a lot of anxiety about seeing this surgeon because I didn't feel like he was able to make the proper movements. And so I was considering even like making my own plans myself to show him my ideas. But as the kind of months went on and I just kept becoming more like dissociated and depersonalized and just like going more and more insane, the concern was less about asking the movements, and the concern was more about I need to sleep better as soon as possible. It's kind of an unfortunate answer, and it's kind of an unfortunate situation that I found myself in because, like I said, I was suicidal and at the end of my rope, and I think if even my surgery got delayed a few months, it could have ended really badly. And so I didn't really have a plan. I kind of just trusted him and crossed my fingers and hoped that my life would improve. Right. I know that's not a good answer, but that was the situation I found myself in.
Right. Yeah, Graham, I mean, I think you were listening earlier, but basically Ethan sort of was in such a desperate state at the time when he was consulting with MMA surgeons or with his one MMA surgeon that he sort of rushed into it. Would you agree? Did you rush into it because you were in such a desperate state?
I wouldn't say rushed into it. It was more just that, like I said, I was just functioning purely in this survival mode. And becoming more and more detached and dissociated from everything. Like it's really a hard feeling to describe, like in terms of just exactly those 6 or 7 months, like what my life was like leading up before the surgery. It was just mentally, like I just wasn't there. Like that's just the honest answer. I just wasn't there as a person.
Yeah. Ethan, do you have any interest in any looks maxing tips for you that are coming in from the comments, or do you not give a shit about looks maxing and about dating?
I'm an OSA patient. I'm not a looks maxer. So I can't really comment on looks maxing. I'm just trying to make my airway as large as possible.
Yeah. Caveman, Ethan isn't really here for looks maxing, and that's totally legit as far as I'm concerned. Let me see if there's anything else coming in here. We might be at the end of our rope here, Ethan. I mean, damn, we've been going for over 2 hours. Ethan, how your face changed during maturity years? I don't know what that means. Oh, yes. This was a good question that I saw earlier. Tell me about how your ability to have good tongue posture changed with MSE and then with surgery. Did you notice a distinct difference?
I feel like, admittedly, tongue posture is something that I still struggle with, but I think that the lateral and the forward movement was able to make a lot more room in my mouth. But I also feel like if the surgeon got more of a counterclockwise rotation of the maxilla, that would be even easier. And I don't know if it's just for me, because even after doing MSE, my palate still is very vaulted.
Mm-hmm. I had a follow-up question for you. Tell me about how the surgery and the advancement of the jaws affected your neck posture. Did it allow you to have more of a straight neck?
That's interesting though, because like I mentioned, well, initially that's what I thought was I could feel that my airway here had expanded and that there was more, a bit more room here. But that, like I said, as I progressed past the 6-month mark, I realized that I was actually starting to have more like worse tension in my neck, but it's because it feels localized to a certain region. It basically feels like my airway is lopsided now. Like I think he brought the jaw forward enough to get enough movement. But I feel like I'm, just still kind of going like this and trying to jut like this part of my airway forward.
So your nerd neck has been partially solved, but not totally.
I thought it got better, but now it seems like it's actually getting worse. Like I said, it just feels lopsided. That's the best word I have to describe it.
But was the surgery lopsided?
It just feels like my airway is lopsided.
Yeah. Hey, Graham Stoney coming in with an interesting comment. Would you agree or disagree with this question from Graham or this comment? Graham, I think the lesson is to only use a surgeon who uses digital surgical planning and to review the plan with them prior to surgery. Agree or disagree, Ethan?
Yeah, no, I definitely agree that digital surgical planning is something I would definitely recommend. honestly, like I said, the surgeon was just the person that my orthodontist initially referred me to, and my orthodontist trusted this surgeon. Um, but yeah, no, I definitely think that um, like digital surgical planning is something that you should look into.
Okay. Can you flash the roof of your mouth for us one more time? Someone's asking, and I would love to see it because I just love that maxilla. Little back more. Damn, boy. I'm gonna build a mansion on that. Hey, can we assess your tongue tie? Can you take the tip of your tongue, put it behind the upper front teeth, and then open wide like this? Tilt your head back a little more. Yeah, I would say not a lot of tongue tie there. That looks like a pretty long tongue to me. It's longer than mine. Look, your shit's longer than mine, bro. Not everywhere though. Sophia. Hi, Sophia. Nice to see you again. What would Ethan do differently if he were to go back to the beginning of his jaw journey? Big question. What would you do
Yeah,
differently, Ethan?
I would have advocated more for myself with my family, and because like I said, there was just a lot of resistance with my family, and so I wish that I had gotten the ball rolling earlier, and then also just sat down with my family and talked to my family. Because like I said, when the orthodontist was initially like, yeah, MMA is the best treatment, they were like, we don't want to do that. But I really wish that I could have sat down with my family more then and been like, hey, I really think this is what we need, and I think it would be worth really, doing more research on different surgeons so that we can, look at different options. That definitely would have been better.
Yeah, yeah. Oh God, man. It's interesting that you brought your primary issue back down to like a communication breakdown that occurred between human beings. So much goes wrong in communication in this space. People think jaw hacking is like primarily about the technicals of the face and of medicine and dentistry, but really so much of it comes down to communication between human beings, whether it be a young man and his parents, or a patient and their orthodontist, or a patient and their surgeon. I guess to some degree, you also had a communication breakdown with your surgeon, right? Like you were to some degree uninformed. Communication is in transparency is so important, man. And I'm sorry that uh, you and your family were not able to communicate enough to not have issues. That's very common, though. Yesterday, I consulted with a guy's mom. He signed up for a consult with me just so I could explain the MMA surgery to his mother, which was difficult because here he is telling me he wants to do MMA, and then here's his mother looking at me saying, "There's nothing wrong with my son's face. He looks good. He's handsome." And what do you say to that? What do you say to a guy's mother when she's pleading with you to walk him off the MMA ledge? It's not easy, but it's almost like we here in the jaw hacking sphere are speaking a different language, and we're seeing a layer of reality that other people are just not seeing.
There was another photo I wanted to show actually. If you wanted to show my screen really quickly, it was my diagnosis that my psychotherapist gave me.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it was
Can you
Ethan
zoom
has
in a little bit? Zoom in so that the text becomes bigger.
thing. It's kind of
That's okay, man. I
yeah.
understand. You have a formatting problem there. I get it. Don't worry about it.
Ethan has been enrolled in therapy services. Ethan endorses symptoms consistent with a diagnosis of post-traumatic stress disorder. Ethan reports that his symptoms are the result of his sleep disorder and reports an increase in the following symptoms when experiencing a lack of sleep: severe fatigue, brain fog, derealization, intrusive thoughts, anxiety, depressed mood, anger, difficulty managing interpersonal relationships, loss of pleasure in activities he once enjoyed, lack of motivation, and self-isolation.
So can you summarize that for us in a nutshell? What's his diagnosis?
Well, I was diagnosed with PTSD, but it was basically that um, from the sessions that we were doing with my psychotherapist, those were the symptoms that she was picking up on were worsening. As my sleep was worsening, symptoms were also worsening. Brain fog, the derealization, the intrusive thoughts, and that warranted a diagnosis of PTSD.
Right. Right. Yeah. What was your PTSD from? Was there an actual traumatic incident that occurred in your life?
It was the breathing problems. It was that
Right. Just all of the collateral damage from the breathing problems and all the problems that ever caused you.
Yeah, well, I think too, like the symptoms were progressive because, let's say, over time, then because I wasn't processing stress in my sleep, I think that I was just having these worsening trauma symptoms, which presented itself as brain fog, anhedonia, um, dissociation, and things like that, and then it progressed to these extremes to where I basically was just completely shell shocked. Like I completely self isolated. My life was just so hellish, and it was at that point I think that the symptoms of the trauma or not processing stress in my sleep and having brain fog progressed to the extremes to where it warranted a diagnosis of PTSD.
Right. Right. Wow, man. Max Smith, who super chatted, let me address his question. Max asks, Ron, what do you think of the state of MSE providers in Europe? Are they on level with those in the US? My answer to that question is not at the level of some US providers. There are some US providers that do some very important things, and I'm specifically referring to piezoelectric surgical assist, the piezotome. This is a bone cutting knife that goes right through the mid-palatal suture in the dentist's office under local anesthesia and also right through here. And when you get this done, you leave your orthodontist's office basically with a split. And this is something that Ilya Lipkin does. This is something that Dr. Ting does. And this is something that a few other American providers do. It basically solves the problem of failure to split in adults and especially in adult men. I don't know of any European providers doing it. If they are do it, they can comment below or someone else can comment. But in my opinion, offering the piezotome surgical assist to the MSE puts you, objectively speaking, in a category of your own in terms of the predictability of the MSE treatment that you can provide. If anyone wants to learn more about what the piezotome looks like or what that involves, I have a JawCast episode coming out on Monday with Ilya Lipkin. My first ever live recorded JawCast episode is going to be released Monday. And Ilya Lipkin, who's my orthodontist, shows us what the piezotome looks like, how it works. At this point, I recommend anyone who can get access to a MSE provider who's using the piezotome, that's who you should go with because it gets you a guaranteed split. All right. But in Europe, there are some solid MSE providers, namely Daniel Cantarella in Italy, Chris Moschik in Germany, Ayse Chamile in Turkey, and maybe some others. Okay. But in the US, we have Ilya Lipkin, who has a 100% success rate since using the piezotome. We have Dr. Ting, who's similar. And then we have people like Joseph Yusefian in Seattle who do MSE DAME, because doing the lower jaw surgery is also a fundamentally superior approach to doing transverse jaw expansion as opposed to anyone who doesn't do mandibular midline distraction. Let me see if there's anything more here for you. Do you see anything, Ethan, that you want to address?
Yep. Someone was asking me about the mewing. I mean, that's tongue posture is a large part of the reason why I had these airway issues because I grew up with the tongue thrust. But I wouldn't really say I'm a mewer. Like it's something that I believe is a good habit to have. It's just not something I've been working on. It was like having better posture. Like you want to work on having better posture, but it's just not really a practice that I've dedicated myself to.
Well, man, you should dedicate yourself to mewing more intently, because it's a direct exercise that deals with your biggest issue, which is your airway. I mean, part of keeping your airway open is training your tongue to be able to go up and forward onto your palate. Your palate seems big enough to accommodate your tongue. Now it's a matter of you being able to use your tongue to take advantage of that real estate that you've given yourself. Jaw expansion is just giving you an opportunity to mew. That's all it really is. There's plenty of people that genetically have big jaws, but they have lazy tongues because they don't mew, and they have airway problems too. So I would like to see you become a little bit more dedicated to mewing. I mean, I haven't seen you mouth breathe much during this chat, so you're probably a decent mewer. But keep that in mind. Someone commented you're a Giga Chad. I agree. Caveman Dude is asking if I still sleep with a backpack. No, I don't. I now sleep on my back with my head to the side. I have a video coming out soon that details how this is, what that looks like. But basically, Caveman Dude, I slept with a backpack because I wanted to prevent my face from facing up and my tongue falling in my throat while I slept. And the reason I needed a backpack is because my body kept rolling back onto my back, because naturally that's where I wanted to be, was on my back. So I thought over the next year or two since posting that video, how can I give my body what it wants, which is to be on my back, while also not fighting gravity with my tongue? And I came up with a solution, which is sleep on your back with your head to the side. So it's the best of all worlds. No pillow, on my back with my head to the side on an inclined bed. That's the right way to sleep. And I've been teaching tons of people that in one-on-one chats, and the consensus is people are loving that. Hey, Max Smith, Daniel Cantarella does use the piezotome. That's good to know. Daniel Cantarella is a top MSE provider in Italy, in Europe. He just so happens to be in the same country that some of the top orthodontic surgeons, such as Mirko Raffaini, are. And I guess he does use the piezotome. So, Max, if that's the case, then I would say European providers are equal to, or at least some European providers are top notch, just like some American providers are. Aiden Hauser dropping bombs, $10. What do you think about balloon blowing? Ethan, question for you.
I was thinking about getting into that, but I never really ended up doing it. I was thinking about trying it.
That is, you want to offer anything more? He doesn't know anything about it, Aiden. He's never tried it. Let me ask you.
It's actually funny because Aiden was talking to me about this, because I was talking to Aiden. I ended up buying balloons from Dollar Tree, but I never ended up like actually practicing blowing.
Are you and Aiden low-key boys?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I reached out to him. I know him.
Yeah. Aiden's a trip. Aaron Mayer asks you a question. Before I get to that question, Aaron, Ethan, you would be more inclined to like do didgeridoo or trombone instead of just blowing balloons, right? Wouldn't you rather just pick up a wind instrument?
Yeah, that would actually be pretty cool, actually.
Yeah, you should get into the didge, man, because the didge sound is kind of like the song you played for us earlier. By the way, plug for Origin of Styx, which is Ethan's music. Google it. It's available all over the internet. Support him by listening to his music, Origin of Styx. Yeah, man, I could totally see you incorporating a didgeridoo into not only your airway health, but also into your music.
Oh yeah, no, it would be really cool to sample, like take recordings of.
Hey, your 9mm of expansion, 9mm of advancement comment, is that your answer to Aaron Mayer's question? Aaron asked, and by the way, Aaron's a friend of mine. Aaron, what up? Aaron wants to know, Aaron is trying to solve his nasal breathing situation. How many turns of your MSE did it take before, as you described earlier, you started breathing like a gorilla?
Yeah, it was actually after the MMA. So I did expansion. I maxed it. I don't know, maybe 8 or 9 millimeters. And then after doing the MMA, they advanced my maxilla 9 millimeters. And so it was really the combination of the expansion and the advancement is what gave me those gains to breathe like a gorilla.
Yeah. Aiden, what do you think about balloons? It looks like Aiden is trying to push the balloons. He says they work. Aiden just blows, man. What do you think, bro? We've been going for a while, man. Almost 2.5 hours. You want to call it a night or what?
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. Moises, didn't mean to ignore you, but I didn't really ever use face mask. But in general, the rule of thumb with face mask is wear it as much as humanly possible. More is more with face mask. More is more. At a minimum, you want to wear it at night when you're asleep. But the more you can wear it beyond that, the better. Oh, did you ever use a face mask, Ethan?
No.
Okay. Aiden is really raving about balloons. He said it cured his UARS.
Well, I don't know if it's going to cure my headaches that I've developed.
Aiden is really pushing the balloon thing. Hey, I take Aiden at his word. That dude knows what's up. And he's someone like you who pushes and pushes and pushes and tries different things until he has an answer. If he says blowing balloons fucking fixes UARS, I'm inclined to believe him. Shout out to Aiden for bringing balloons to our attention. Ethan, do you do Mackenzie chin tucks?
No.
How do you protect yourself from phone radiation? I think radiation decreases exponentially with distance. So, like, even if you can get your phone a couple feet away from you, that's a lot better than it being in your pocket. So that's what I would say. And airplane mode at night. Definitely don't sleep with that shit under your pillow without airplane mode being on. Oh, damn. I just figured out how to put comments on the screen. Damn. Look at that. Aiden, it cured my UARS. Oh, all you got to do is click on the comment and it goes on the screen. That's sick. Can you see that? Where on the screen it says it cured my UARS?
Yeah.
Haha. That's sick. Um, yes, I have seen this guy and I don't know what to think of it, but it looks impressive.
Someone's asking to see my profile again.
Ethan's side profile. This is after MMA, by the way. Ethan had MMA, and this is what his side profile looks like.
Yeah, you can still tell there is a bit of recession. That's why I feel like I'm still basically. I can't really. It's not really. Doesn't feel natural to straighten my neck. I'm still basically going like this. Like I said, it basically just feels like my airway is lopsided now.
Ethan, give us a side profile without such an aggressive, elongated neck posture. Just kind of just like chill like this. Okay. That's a little bit more moderate.
Yeah, like you say, basically just did too much genioplasty. 9 millimeter genioplasty is like that's like very large genioplasty.
Damn, yeah. So he compensated for the lack of mandibular advancement with an overdone genioplasty.
Yep.
Can you show us your widest smile? Pretty solid. Pretty solid. Bro, I'm toast. I'm toast. These people want more action. The video is, there's more viewers now than there was at the beginning. I think everyone's tuning into YouTube, but I'm fucking toast. You want to know why Ron hasn't aged? Because Ron doesn't use the computer after 7:30 p.m. except for when he's live streaming. That's exactly why Ron's about to hop off, because 7:42 p.m. in the wintertime is approaching bedtime for me. Blue light, no bueno.
Do you want to sign out then?
It's addicting, man. The comments just keep coming, and it's hard to shut it down. But okay, I'll. Do you want to stop, or do you want to answer this question? What's your favorite part of making music?
The catharsis.
Tell us what that means.
Well, kind of like those songs I played of the Hypnagogia album that I shared, of the album picture of me with the MSE. So those were the last few songs that I made, like leading up to the surgery. So what exactly was the question?
What's your favorite part of making music?
Oh yeah, no. So for those, for example, it's like I don't really plan out how I make music. I'll just start throwing random sounds and samples together, and then the music kind of writes itself. But it's kind of cathartic for me, where I'll make a song and it might be about some kind of trauma or dissociation that I went through, and the fact that I'm able to make that and put that emotion in the music and then put that out in the world, like that's cathartic for me. I would say that's my favorite part.
Have you ever written a love song?
No,
That's
I
just
written
not
a
on
lot
your.
of songs. I written a lot of songs about misanthropy.
Yeah, love isn't romantic. Love just isn't on your radar, huh?
I wouldn't. It's not something I'm going to talk about on this interview.
I hear you. It's a fool's game anyway, bro. Based and candle pilled Ron. Based, candle pilled, Christ pilled, garnet pilled. All the pills you can think of. I took them all with a shot of scotch. Ethan, Sigma. Ethan's a Sigma male. Bro, just live your healthiest life, and that's how you slow aging. Okay? Do all the things you can to biomax, biochem max, health hack, jaw hack, psychology hack. Every hack you can think of to live your best life, that's how you stop aging. But in the end, bro, no one can escape it. We all get old, we all get sick, we all die. So enjoy the time you have now, because tomorrow you could go, man. Honestly, I mean that. Savor it, bro. Don't try to fight aging. Just live your best, healthiest life and try to savor the time you have. No one can escape the grips of aging, illness, and death. Ethan, Ethan, do you sing? Do you do
Not
vocals?
regularly. I mean, I've done like vocals on songs before, but I don't like sing regularly.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of interest here in your musical experiences. Would you say music is a way you express yourself?
Yeah.
I
Oh
would
yeah.
say
I mean,
obviously, yeah.
music is the a lot of my music is like what I have to show for myself for going through this experience is the music. The music speaks for itself.
Yeah. Do you have any thoughts on this comment? Find friends. Being lonely is deadly.
Well, kind of like I said, how back in my chronic illness life, I really did self isolate. But then, at least once my sleep was starting to improve after the surgery, then I, made more of an effort to go put myself into these social situations, even though I still was having brain fog. So I am, working in that towards that regard.
Yeah, yeah. Well, has this live stream been a rewarding social experience for you?
Yeah,
We've been hanging out for 2.5 hours, me and you, bro. I consider us friends at this point.
I feel bonded, even honestly, just over like your interest in Buddhism. Like I think that's really cool because I talked also about like how I used meditation for a while to try and help the pain of the brain fog that I was having.
Yeah, man. Honestly, I think that you and I, if we could have just gone more down that road of discussing philosophy that we started on in the first 5 minutes of the conversation, that's where me and you would go without all the jaw hacking bullshit, right? But obviously, um, the people want to know about MMA and MSE and so on and so forth. But yeah, man, look, I'm gonna pull the plug on it. That's it. I want to say thank you to everyone. I want to say thank you to Ethan. I want to find this. I want to end with this comment. You'll make it, Ethan. You will make it. You have made it. The worst is behind you. I feel very strongly that that's the case. All right, if you have to do a revision, fuck it. You'll get through it. Okay? It's just pain. Your body's going to die someday anyway. Just fucking feel the pain. Get your money's worth out of this body, bro. Get your
That's why
money's
I'm
worth.
going to Wolford. That's why I'm going to Wolford.
Hell yeah. It really is just a machine, man. And sometimes you got to just make the machine bigger, bro. And I just I'm just so happy you survived, man, because I know it was pretty bad there for a while. And you survived, man. It's really a hero's journey that you've been on.
I feel like
And
a sleep apnea survivor.
you are a sleep apnea survivor. You are, man. And I sincerely wish you the best of luck with your life, bro. Maybe you and me will never talk again. It's possible. I'm here for you. If there's ever anything I can do for you, reach out. We're friends now. We're boys. But you know, if it's a while before we talk again, I really wish you the best, man. I hope you find what you're looking for. I hope you keep growing and improving, and I hope you keep getting past all this negative shit that you've had to deal with. You know, God is with you through everything. Never forget that. I don't know how religious you are. It seems like you've gone the other way in terms of the misanthropy, but hey, be an empty teacup, okay? Always leave room in the cup for more. You never know what the next brilliant idea you're going to have is. Maybe your next brilliant idea is, you know, Jesus Christ. It's possible. You don't have to comment on that now, but it's possible. A lot of other people in this position have, come to that. I know Aiden's taken the Christ pill. I've taken the Christ pill. A lot of my viewers have. You just never know, man. Keep the teacup half empty. And definitely let us know what you decide to do with the revision. Okay, man.
Okay.
All right. You want to say bye to the audience? Up to you, man. Everyone loves you, so just give. Why don't you give them some parting words?
Thank you for your guys' support. You can feel free to reach out to me too, by the way. You can email me, originofstyx@gmail.com.
Fuck yeah. Hell yeah, man. All right, bros. Peace out to everyone. Thank you all for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next JawCast live stream sometime. Peace out, people.